Chapter 544. The blazing sun hung high up in the sky, illuminating the ancient palace of Yi. Waves of terrifying might gushed over from afar. The human emperor was lying on his bed. He opened his eyes as a bright light flashed within them. After which, he roared, "Prepare the banquet." As the sound of his voice faded, a moment later, a group of silhouettes appeared outside the royal palace. No one obstructed them. These silhouettes moved in a grandiose manner, causing a stifling pressure to be felt everywhere they passed. At the same time, outside the human emperor's palace, on the flight of stairs leading up to the ancient pathway made of white dragon jade, more and more attendants arrived. They arranged tables and chairs, as well as precious fruits and wine. In the short time it took for an incense stick to burn, hundreds of tables had already been set up, lined up on both sides of the pathway. In the middle of the pathway, there was a long corridor where more and more people approached, their gazes fixated on the flight of stairs ahead. "We came here to disturb the human emperor, we beg for your forgiveness." These people's voices were loud and clear. Although they were asking for forgiveness, there wasn't much respect in them. "Don't worry about it. Everyone, please be seated." The human emperor's voice rang out once more. Momentarily, the experts from the various powers all took their seats. The surrounding soldiers of the human emperor's bloodline were all extremely nervous. They could naturally sense how powerful these people were. Any one of them could give off a stifling pressure. This was especially so for the few people at the front. One of them was a middle-aged man with an incomparably imposing countenance. He was clad in golden royal robes and just casually sitting there, yet his battle intent towered up into the skies, akin to a god of war. Everywhere his gaze passed by, only a few people dared to match his gaze. This man was none other than the strongest person in the war country, the Grand Marshal King. Beside him, there was a young man with a handsome countenance. His resplendent eyes surveyed the surroundings, as though he wasn't afraid at all. This man was a prince of the war country. That young man turned his gaze onto a female in front of him. His expression froze for a moment as a bright light flashed in his eyes. That female was radiating a resplendent light, as though there was a halo of light enveloping her, causing others to not dare to stare directly at her. Her beauty was unparalleled. This female was none other than Princess Tian of the Spirit One country. Beside her, there was another female with outstanding looks, exuding an awe-inspiring aura. Below them were the leaders of the Li clan and barbarian race. The barbarians were all tall and sturdy, giving off a feeling of strength. Those from the Li clan all had reserved expressions, giving off a feeling of calmness. Only Li Hanyu was different. Her beautiful eyes stared at the few outstanding youths around her, as a hint of competitive intent flashed in her eyes. This was especially so for Princess Tian, whose fame was even greater than hers. Every time she glanced over, her eyes would blaze with a desire to battle. "The Qi King, the Su King, the Ghost King, the Han King, pay our respects to the human emperor." Numerous voices rang out from afar. From afar, more and more silhouettes entered the royal palace. In just an instant, several figures could be seen walking over. The people in the lead were all from the nobility of Yi. The human emperor didn't give the order and they had already entered. Everyone knew very well why they were here today. "Be seated." A voice rang out from within the chambers of the human emperor. Back then, other than the Qi King who was the leader, the other nobility were all hiding in the shadows. But now, the nobility could no longer conceal themselves. All of them stood out, wanting to force the human emperor to abdicate. As the nobility sat down, the gazes of many landed on a young man beside the Qi King. This young man was none other than Yikong Fan, a disciple of the Violet Thunder sect. From the chambers of the human emperor, silhouettes walked out one after another. They were none other than the Crown Prince and Yiling Shuang. After which, the maidens of the Medicine Sovereign Valley escorted Mo Qingcheng as she walked out. Beside her, there was a young man who exuded an aura of tranquility and tranquility. However, his eyes were as deep as the starry skies, resplendent yet bottomless. This young man was none other than Qin Wentian. Upon seeing Imo Qingcheng, the eyes of many brightened. Even the crown prince of the war country and Princess Tianhuan couldn't help but tremble as they silently mused in their hearts. What a beauty! Such a transcendent beauty, as expected of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. No wonder Yi Kongfan's love turned into hatred, causing him to slander her. These people dispersed to the two sides of the hall. After which, a figure slowly walked out. This figure seemed calm, with no aura at all. But the instant he appeared, the gazes of everyone instantly landed on him. The human emperor of Yi, Yi Qingyun. The eyes of the Qi King, Su King, and the others involuntarily narrowed as a cold light flashed in their eyes. Yi Qingyun had actually woken up. Not only that, his countenance was rosy, and he seemed to be brimming with energy. However, when they thought about the fact that the poison they inflicted on him had no antidote, unless the medicine sovereign personally appeared, it was impossible for the holy maiden to cure him. This was why they were so at ease. Right now, the human emperor was most probably preparing for his final struggle before his death. He must have used some sort of secret art that allowed him to regain his vigor before death. Upon thinking of this, their hearts were at ease as they sat there unmoving. They were only astonished that the human emperor was strong enough to endure the poison for so many days without dying. Only to see the silhouettes of guards appearing, bringing over a dragon throne. The human emperor sat on it, his gaze sweeping over everyone as he spoke. "Everyone, what's the purpose of your visit?" As the sound of his voice faded, the crowd didn't know how to reply. A cold smile flickered in the eyes of the human emperor. He then turned his gaze onto the Qi King and the others as he laughed. "My royal brothers, all of you came here without my permission. Are you unhappy with me, your royal brother?" The Qi King's countenance flickered as he stared at the smile on the human emperor's face. He couldn't fathom what the human emperor was thinking. "Yi Qingyun, you are a ruthless person. Back then when you were seizing the throne, you killed your own brothers and sisters, taking their heads as a show of force. Your crimes are unpardonable. Now that you've governed the Yi country for so many years, you've killed countless people and even ordered people to barge into the Qi King manor. I feel that it's time for my royal brother to step down." The Han King coldly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the entire space turned sluggish. These words of his were extremely disgraceful, yet he had clearly stated his intentions for coming here today. Evidently, he was already prepared for a decisive battle. The human emperor stared at the Han King. That smile in his eyes actually caused the Han King to feel a chill down his spine. "If you want me to step down, it's very simple. You can chop off my head as a show of force and the position of the human emperor will be yours. But before that, I'm still the human emperor of Yi. Not long ago, I heard the Qi King's useless son slandering the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley and even instigated the Eastern Mountain Marquis to kill my foster son. Truly an eye-opener." The human emperor then turned his gaze onto the Qi King and his son as he coldly spoke. "A man of character is decisive when it comes to killing. His heart is filled with venom, but as a descendant of the royal clan, a genius from the Violet Thunder sect, my foster son invited you to battle on the royal battle platform but you actually didn't dare to do so? You've thrown the face of my royal clan. With such a nephew, even this emperor is ashamed because of you." Yi Kongfan stared into the eyes of the human emperor as his body trembled. The human emperor humiliated him in public. Although he was incomparably enraged in his heart, he didn't dare to retort. "Royal brother, don't you think it's beneath your status to bully a child?" The Qi King faintly spoke. Qin Wentian surveyed the Qi King only to see that he had an ordinary countenance and didn't exude any aura at all. Yet, he gave off a sense of danger. "If it wasn't for the fact that he is a descendant of my royal clan, I wouldn't even bother to teach him a lesson. Yi Kongfan, if you can still be considered a man of my royal clan, tell everyone here if you were the one who did those things." The human emperor stared at Yi Kongfan, his words causing Yi Kongfan to grit his teeth as he coldly replied, Yi Kongfan, did it. So what of it? Good, that's more like a man." The human emperor faintly replied. After which, he turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian who was beside him. Qin Wentian took a step forward, staring at Yi Kongfan. Their gazes collided in the air, both of them were filled with an intense battle intent. Boom! Stepping out, Qin Wentian soared up into the air. When Yi Kongfan saw this scene, he similarly soared up in the air as his aura erupted forth. He didn't even bother to conceal the might of a peak 7th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign as a tempest ravaged the skies. He roared in rage, "Qin Wentian, since you want to court death, I shall grant you your wish." As the sound of his voice faded, Yi Kongfan's bloodline erupted forth as lightning crackled in the air. With his body as the center, a terrifying lightning giant appeared behind him, resembling a god of lightning. At this moment, Yi Kongfan's aura was extremely terrifying, wanting to destroy everything with lightning alone. "Coward, yet you still dare to spout such arrogant words? How shameless!" Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with an unfathomable light. His aura changed abruptly, becoming incomparably demonic as his bloodline thrummed. Astral light shone resplendently, akin to a descendant of a primordial demon king. The 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, seems like he has broken through. In addition to the amplification from his bloodline, his aura is already at the 6th level. Such a bloodline is actually able to break through to the next level, and there's even a towering demonic chi around him. I wonder what kind of bloodline this is. However, Yi Kongfan's bloodline is also extremely powerful. With the Calamity Lightning bloodline, I wonder how many times stronger his attacks would be. The spectators inclined their heads and stared at the skies, feeling fear in their hearts as they stared at the eruption of auras from the two of them. Most probably, one of them would die today, but they had no idea who it would be. Unleashing the Fiend transformation art, Qin Wentian's body was clad in an ancient demonic armor. His entire body exuded an aura that caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. In the center of his brows, a vertical beam of light could be seen, resembling a demonic eye. "Is this the reason why you are so confident?" Yi Kongfan stared at the transformation of Qin Wentian, yet he was still as confident as ever. His eyes flashed with a terrifying killing intent as he slowly stepped out. "Just this much and you will die for sure." Lightning filled the skies, akin to the light of calamity, enveloping Yi Kongfan's fist. His silhouette was like the wind, instantly appearing before Qin Wentian. With a howl of rage, he punched out, exuding a towering might. The thunder god behind him was howling as a terrifying ancient demonic silhouette appeared in the air above him. Boundless might gathered on his fist as it smashed out, causing the entire space to be destroyed. This fist was like a gigantic maw of destruction, capable of devouring everything in its path. Thunder God's annihilation from the Violet Thunder sect. When this innate technique is unleashed by Yi Kongfan, I wonder how terrifying would it be. Qin Wentian lifted his palms in response. The divine energy in his body erupted forth as all 4 of his Yuanfu rumbled. This was especially so for his first Yuanfu, every single grain of divine energy contained a destructive might. Pang! The attacks of the two of them collided as the shockwaves of destruction gushed forth, ripping their robes apart. Qin Wentian only felt the destructive might of the tribulation lightning gushing into his body, while Yi Kongfan felt as though his arms were about to be torn apart by the destructive might. Both of them were in unbearable pain. "Qin Wentian, die!" Yi Kongfan roared. Above his head, strands of tribulation lightning cascaded downwards, converging into incomparably sharp blades that slashed towards Qin Wentian. Despite the intense pain, he didn't retreat in the slightest. He wanted to kill Qin Wentian on the spot. As long as he used absolute strength to kill Qin Wentian, who would still dare to say that he, Yi Kongfan, was a coward? The victor shall be king. Chapter 545. Qin Wentian inclined his head and howled in rage. His sword chi towered up the heavens as his astral nova stabilized the space around him. His sword chi ravaged the area, suppressing the destructive might of the descending lightning. Yi Kongfan coldly snorted. His palms trembled as he grabbed towards Qin Wentian. At the same time, the two astral novas behind him manifesting an incomparably gigantic thunder god palm that grabbed towards Qin Wentian. The entire space trembled, and in an instant, the entire heavens and earth trembled. Qin Wentian's entire body was enveloped by lightning as the thunder god palm imprint abruptly clenched, as though he was looking at a dead man. A cold smile flickered in Yi Kongfan's eyes as he stared at Qin Wentian. It was as though he was looking at a dead man. The spectators below all felt their hearts trembling when they saw the thunder god palm imprint. Seems like the disparity in strength between the two of them wasn't small. This Qin Wentian would definitely be heavily injured even if he didn't die. Li Hanyo's eyes flashed with disdain. If Qin Wentian only had this little bit of strength, wouldn't he be looked down upon by others? Throwing away the face of the battle sword sect. Back then, he actually dared to reject the invitation of her master, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Roar! An earth-shattering roar of rage rang out. At the same time, Yi Kongfan's palms trembled violently as the tribulation lightning in that area exploded. The destructive qi ravaged the entire space, tearing everything apart. However, at the same time, the spectators only saw a demonic beast appearing in the air. It was none other than the demon sovereign astral nova. After letting out a roar, its gigantic body shielded Qin Wentian, allowing the destructive lightning to ravage its body. Its defense was extremely terrifying. The destructive might of the tribulation lightning had no way to break through it. Qin Wentian stared at the frozen smile on Yi Kongfan's face. Abruptly, his palms grabbed out in the air as his demon sovereign astral soul also did the same thing, grabbing towards the void. This was an innate technique that Yi Kongfan had used earlier. How is that possible? Yi Kongfan's countenance sharpened as bolts of lightning shot out from his eyes. But at this moment, the entire space around him trembled violently as though it was being grabbed by an immense force. Indeed, it was extremely similar to his innate technique. Qin Wentian actually managed to learn it in the blink of an eye. Was this something impossible? It was just that the destructive might of the lightning was replaced by the incomparably tyrannical demonic energy. Boom! Qin Wentian abruptly clenched his fist, causing the entire space to tremble. A terrifying pulsating force blasted forth, blasting into Yi Kongfan. Yi Kongfan's bloodline power howled in rage as boundless divine lightning blasted forth, destroying that formless energy. His long hair fluttered in the wind as his black hair actually turned violet. The mandate of lightning at the perfection boundary. The countenances of the spectators all flashed with sharpness. Yi Kongfan was at the peak of the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and his 2nd level mandate of lightning had already reached the perfection boundary. His talent in the aspect of lightning was truly shocking. No wonder he had the Calamity Lightning bloodline and the Heavenly Lightning physique. Yi Kongfan, whose violet hair fluttered in the wind, grew even more violent. He stared at Qin Wentian as the power of the wind enveloped him. How could he not cultivate speed? Hence, he chose to cultivate the mandate of wind. The 1st level was speed, and the 2nd level was wind lacerations. As the foundation for increasing his speed, his attack power would also increase as well. This way, when he faced his opponents, he wouldn't have to worry about his opponents using their speed to flee. An unparalleled attack power coupled with sufficient speed was a perfect combination. There were some wuxiu who preferred to add defense as well, but Yi Kongfan didn't. What he pursued was the strongest attack power possible. You've cultivated an imitation-type innate technique. Yi Kongfan stared at Qin Wentian. Do you think it's useful? In the face of absolute power, everything else is but an illusion. As Yi Kongfan spoke, a brilliant light flashed as a violet long spear appeared. This long spear emanated a towering destructive might. It was none other than one of his astral novas. The spectators only saw the lightning giant behind Yi Kongfan radiating waves of tribulation lightning. The long spear was grasped in his hands, and at the same time, a pair of wings of wind appeared. The 4 astral novas combined together, transforming into a true thunder slaughter god, standing guard behind Yi Kongfan. Ordinary 7th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't even be able to withstand a single strike from him. I'll let you see what a perfect combination of astral novas is. Even if you die, you can still be proud of yourself. Yi Kongfan emotionlessly spoke. The hearts of the spectators below trembled. The thunder slaughter god formed from 4 astral novas was indeed extremely terrifying. You really talk too much nonsense. Qin Wendian cursed in a low voice. After which, his astral novas appeared simultaneously. The demon sovereign astral nova, wielding a heavenly hammer in his hands. With a roar of rage, the entire space trembled as boundless power gushed forth. The combination of the demon sovereign astral nova and the heavenly hammer was a combination of demonic and physical force. How terrifying was the power contained within. An ancient halberd appeared in the hands of the sleeping astral nova, standing on the left of Qin Wendian. The king's sword floated in the center, forming a 3-pronged formation. My cultivation base is at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. How can your astral novas compare to mine? Shatter it! Yi Kongfan roared. Momentarily, the lightning giant formed from his astral novas whistled through the air as a destructive violet long spear pierced out. The tribulation lightning descended, wanting to destroy everything. The spectators only saw a beam of violet light shooting towards Qin Wendian in the blink of an eye. Roar, roar, roar. The demon sovereign astral nova howled in rage. Wielding the heavenly hammer in his hands, he stomped on the air and abruptly smashed out, containing boundless might within. The astral novas of stellar martial cultivators were completely under Wuxiu's control. They could unleash innate techniques just like Wuxiu, and as the hammer smashed down, it felt as though the heavens and earth were about to shatter apart. The demon sovereign astral soul was actually forced to retreat. Despite that, the king's sword howled in rage as it slashed forwards. The astral novas of the heavenly great sleep halberd exploded forth, encircling the astral nova of the demon sovereign astral soul. Instantly, a battle of astral novas appeared in the air, with neither side willing to give way. Both sides were evenly matched. Your astral nova is truly weak. If I was at your level, I would only need a single strike to shatter your astral nova. Qin Wendian stood in the air, controlling his astral nova as he mocked Yi Kongfan. Yi Kongfan's countenance drastically changed. He was 2 levels higher than Qin Wendian, and his astral nova was naturally stronger. Yet, he actually couldn't suppress Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian's 4 astral novas were different from others. Each and every one of them contained a unique energy that was extremely condensed. It was as though the astral energy in the Yuan Fu that nurtured them was much stronger than Qin Wendian's. Seems like Qin Wendian's astral nova is able to suppress Yi Kongfan in all aspects. The human emperor laughed. Although the Qi king didn't want to admit it, this was the truth. If not, Qin Wendian's astral nova wouldn't possess such destructive might, allowing him to contend against Yi Kongfan's astral nova. Han Yu, this man seems to be stronger than what you said. In the direction of the Li clan, Li Hanyo's second grandfather slowly spoke, his words causing Li Hanyo's countenance to turn somewhat unsightly. This Qin Wendian was truly powerful. If she were to fight against Qin Wendian, she wouldn't dare to say that she would be able to win. In truth, this was all because of Li Hanyo's own heart. She wasn't willing to admit that she was inferior to Yi Kongfan. If the person fighting against Yi Kongfan right now was a 7th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign, she might admit that she wouldn't be able to win against him. But it was precisely because Qin Wendian's cultivation base was the same as hers. How could she admit that she was inferior to Qin Wendian? The chaotic energy currents in the air continued as the 2 astral novas clashed against each other. Qin Wendian and Yi Kongfan stood there motionlessly, staring at each other as killing intent surged in the air. Qin Wendian, I admit that your strength isn't bad. But since you challenged me, you are simply courting death. Today, you won't be able to survive. Earlier, I was merely playing with you. Yi Kongfan coldly spoke, his eyes still flickering with arrogance and disdain. Naturally, he wasn't playing around. Initially, he thought that his strength was already sufficient to kill Qin Wendian, yet he failed to do so. Hence, he could only use an even stronger method to kill Qin Wendian. No matter what, Qin Wentian would die for sure. There was no way he could escape this calamity. If your strength was as powerful as your mouth, I'm afraid no one in the Violet Thunder sect would be a match for you. Qin Wentian mocked. This Yikong fan didn't seem to have any advantage, yet every sentence he spoke made it sound as though Qin Wentian would die for sure. If this was the case, why wasn't he dead yet? This will be the last time. Next, you shall die under the lightning tribulation. Yikong fan slowly spoke. The power of his bloodline erupted forth once more, incomparably turbulent. Lightning engulfed his entire body, and within that incomparably resplendent lightning, Yikong fan stretched out his hand and actually pulled out a lightning tribulation spear. Tribulation lightning bloodline, heavenly lightning physique, these were his strongest abilities. Prepare to die. As the sound of Yikong fan's voice faded, his silhouette vanished like a gust of wind. In an instant, he passed through the tyrannical astral novas, slamming downwards from the sky. Qin Wentian inclined his head only to see a beam of violet light flashing past. This was none other than Yikong fan's lightning tribulation spear piercing downwards. Under the might of this violet light, all lives would be annihilated. The spectators were all shocked. This strike was more than sufficient to kill Qin Wentian. Boom! Astral light erupted forth, stellar transposition. Yikong fan was like a beam of violet light piercing through the air. His entire body was bathed in violet lightning, and even his hair was violet in color. He exuded an incomparably heroic aura as he stared at the afterimages of Qin Wentian. I want to see how many more strikes you can dodge. As the sound of his voice faded, Yikong fan rushed out once more, transforming into a beam of violet light. However, the astral light flashed again, and Qin Wentian transformed into a series of afterimages once more. Even with the augmentation of the mandate of wind, Yikong fan's speed was still slower than stellar transposition. However, he wasn't discouraged. With such an innate technique, Qin Wentian's consumption rate would surely be extremely fast. Sooner or later, he would die. Yikong fan. At this moment, Qin Wentian's voice rang out. Yikong fan inclined his head and stared at Qin Wentian, only to see a murderous light flickering in Qin Wentian's eyes. The time of your death has arrived. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. Although Yikong fan's strength had also exceeded his expectations, Yikong fan would still die for sure. His bloodline surged as a blood-colored light appeared within Qin Wentian's body. This terrifying blood-colored light actually transformed into an extremely dangerous blood halberd that contained a violent demonic might. Bzzz. Qin Wentian's silhouette transformed into a series of afterimages, moving as fast as lightning. He was precisely using the speed of stellar transposition to activate his halberd arts. As the halberd slashed out, the howls of demonic beasts could be faintly heard as a dreamlike illusion gushed into Yikong fan's sea of consciousness, causing his countenance to stiffen. He lifted his halberd and stabbed out, causing calamitous light to flash, wanting to destroy everything. Pang! The attacks of the two collided as destructive chi currents wreaked havoc, yet neither of them were injured. Qin Wentian retreated after a single strike, yet Yikong fan only saw a shadow appearing in another direction, slashing out with his halberd once again, accompanied by the roars of the demonic beasts. Halberd strike after halberd strike, it was as though there was no end to it. Yikong fan didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless as he adopted a defensive stance. With such an attack, Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to sustain it for too long. His astral energy would be depleted soon. The blood-colored light enveloped the entire space. Yikong fan bit his lips as blood seeped out, forcing himself to remain clear-headed, not allowing the dreamlike illusion to invade his will. Within the blood-colored light, many shadows of Qin Wentian appeared, to the point where it was almost impossible to distinguish which was the real one. If this continues, he will die for sure. The Han Emperor coldly snorted as he stared at the battle in the air. But at this moment, the Qi Emperor's brows suddenly furrowed as a piercing sound rang out. Boom! The Qi Emperor abruptly stood up as a terrifying might engulfed the heavens and earth. At the instant he furrowed his brows, a blood-colored ancient halberd pierced through Yi Kongfan's head, a terrifying sight to behold. Yi Kongfan's eyes widened in anger as he stared in front of him. He didn't even know how he died. There was clearly no attack coming from this direction. Why did a life-ending halberd strike appear? Chapter 546. The afterimages dissipated, leaving behind only Qin Wentian wielding the ancient halberd, standing there proudly. Yi Kongfan's life force had yet to dissipate. He stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. Even now, he still didn't dare to believe that he would die under Qin Wentian's halberd techniques. His cultivation base was at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and he also had the Calamity Lightning bloodline, as well as the Heavenly Lightning physique. How tyrannical was his combat prowess! During the exchange of blows between the two of them, his attacks were clearly stronger than Qin Wentian's. Qin Wentian was able to hold on because he used the stellar transposition movement technique to temporarily take a defensive stance. But why was it that the one who died was him, Yi Kongfan? His perception was exceedingly strong. Before this, every halberd strike of Qin Wentian was accompanied by the roars of demonic beasts, and at the same time, the dreamscape corroded his mind. Only this final halberd strike was completely silent. In fact, he could even confirm that in the direction where Qin Wentian came from, there wasn't a single halberd strike at all. How did you do it? Yi Kongfan's lips were dripping with blood as he weakly spat out. Qin Wentian coldly stared at Yi Kongfan, there was no hint of pity in his eyes. He coldly spoke, "You think you're extraordinary, slandering my wife. Now that you died in my hands, do you regret it?" As the sound of his voice faded, he didn't wait for Yi Kongfan's reply. The blood halberd flashed with a resplendent light as a destructive energy erupted forth. Yi Kongfan was killed on the spot. The hearts of the spectators involuntarily trembled. Naturally, they could tell that Yi Kongfan's attacks were stronger than Qin Wentian's. But sometimes, victory or defeat wasn't determined by one's attacks alone. When Qin Wentian executed the stellar transposition technique, he had already made his final preparations, and that was also when Yi Kongfan was destined to die. Yi Kongfan couldn't tell, but how could those ascendants not see the might of that final halberd strike? This halberd strike was definitely created by Qin Wentian himself. It was soundless and had absolute speed and destructive power. But the most fatal point was that this halberd strike was actually able to conceal itself within the void. Or more accurately, it was able to confuse the eyes of those who saw it. Qin Wentian had already fused the illusory into reality. This halberd strike that was filled with creativity was truly breathtaking. Qin Wentian with a cultivation base at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper killed the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, the son of the Qi King, Yi Kongfan of the Violet Thunder sect. Many experts stared at the silhouette of the young man in the air, silently musing that if this young man didn't die, he would definitely become a character that could dominate an entire region in the future. The reason why the human emperor accepted him as his foster son was because he hoped that he would have such a successor to inherit his legacy. Junior brother Qin's strength is so powerful. Lu Yun murmured. Duan Han nodded his head as he spoke, "It's like I've seen the essence of the 8th to 14th sword strike of the grass hut." Junior brother Qin's attacks should have already reached that level. No wonder he was able to comprehend 14 sword strikes in one go, breaking the record of our battle sword sect. Li Hanyo's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. She didn't expect that Qin Wentian would actually be able to kill Yi Kongfan. Back then when Qin Wentian broke the record of the grass hut, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness personally invited her over, causing her to feel extremely unhappy in her heart. How could she feel that she was inferior to Qin Wentian whose cultivation base was weaker than hers? But now, Qin Wentian's cultivation base was already the same as hers, at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. In addition to that, he also domineeringly killed the genius of the Violet Thunder sect, Yi Kongfan. Even if she didn't want to admit it, she understood that she was inferior to Qin Wentian. This feeling of inferiority caused the proud Li Hanyu to feel extremely uncomfortable. She was a genius of the Li clan, a personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, while Qin Wentian had just entered the Battle Sword sect. Everyone had their own thoughts in their hearts, but the person who was the most enraged was undoubtedly the Qi King. Yi Kongfan had always been the son he was extremely proud of. He came here today with the intention of killing Qin Wentian, yet he didn't expect that his son would be killed right in front of him. By the time he sensed that something was wrong, it was already too late. Yi Kongfan had many life-saving methods on him, but that fatal halberd strike didn't give him any time to react. Upon personally witnessing Yi Kongfan's death, towering anger erupted from the Qi King. His entire body crackled with lightning as crackling sounds echoed out. His eyes were bloodshot as his silhouette flickered, catching the falling body of Yi Kongfan. His entire person was bathed in lightning, exuding a supreme might. My son. The Qi King stared at the corpse of Yi Kongfan whose head had exploded. He inclined his head as his killing intent towered up into the skies. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered, he only felt a terrifying pressure boring down on him as a towering will bore down on him. He groaned in misery as he coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. Astral light flashed as stellar transposition was executed. Qin Wentian retreated with explosive speed. Impudent! The human emperor roared, causing the entire space to tremble. However, the Qi King didn't seem to care at all. He grabbed out with his palm, manifesting a lightning palm imprint that could destroy everything. Qin Wentian only felt that doomsday had arrived. However, at this moment, the light from the constellation in the sky flashed. The constellation was incomparably resplendent, akin to the starry skies. This terrifying constellation flashed with light, directly enveloping Qin Wentian within. The lightning palm imprint blasted out with a terrifying destructive might, causing thunderous rumbling sounds to echo out, yet it didn't injure Qin Wentian at all. Qi King, seems like your son Yi Kongfan's despicable character was learned from you. His skills were inferior and he was killed by my foster son despite his cultivation base being higher than him. You actually dared to take revenge on him. Yi Kongfan truly deserved his death. The human emperor stepped out, staring down at the Qi King. Momentarily, the people below no longer had the mood to enjoy the banquet as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. The Qi King stared at the human emperor, his killing intent towering up into the skies. The human emperor actually said that his son Yi Kongfan deserved his death. Human emperor, this brat's methods are despicable, killing a prince of the royal clan yet you still want to protect him. Seems like you are no longer suitable to be the human emperor of Yi country. It's time for you to abdicate. The Su King coldly spoke. The nobility started to speak, and in an instant, the entire royal palace was enveloped by a towering might. The human emperor coldly laughed, staring at the Su King. Seems like you people are getting more and more despicable. Yi Kongfan had a cultivation base at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper and came here to kill Wentian. Now that he was killed by Wentian, you actually dare to say such words. What a joke. Since you want me to abdicate, it's very simple. Just chop off my head and the position of the human emperor will be yours. But with just the few of you, it's not enough. Who else is there? Scram the hell out of here. This explosive roar caused the entire royal palace to tremble. How terrifying was the might of the human emperor. The human emperor of an ancient country was unrivaled in Yi country. Human emperor, it's time for you to abdicate. Another voice drifted over. In the distance, more and more experts from the nobility of ancient countries could be seen. They had long controlled over half of the royal palace and were extremely powerful. Human emperor, this brat killed a disciple of my Violet Thunder sect. Hand him over to me. At this moment, an expert from the Violet Thunder sect stepped out, pointing his finger at Qin Wentian. In a battle between juniors, there's no grudges between them. You, a celestial phenomenon ascendant, actually want to participate in this? Do you want to start a war with the Battle Sword sect? The human emperor swept his gaze over. I naturally won't participate in a battle between juniors. But since he killed Yi Kongfan of my Violet Thunder sect, there will naturally be disciples from my Violet Thunder sect who will kill him. Human emperor, by protecting him, you are making an enemy out of my Violet Thunder sect. The aura of the old man surged, his voice was cold and filled with a hint of threat. Qin Wentian stared at the silhouettes stepping out as his heart pounded. Seems like the Qi King and the others had made ample preparations. Even though the human emperor was poisoned, they still laid out an inescapable net, not intending to let the human emperor live. As for the people from the Violet Thunder sect wanting to capture him, that was merely an excuse for them to make a move against the human emperor. The human emperor laughed maniacally when he heard that, causing the entire space to tremble. His gaze swept over the experts in the air as he coldly spoke, "How ridiculous. The Violet Thunder sect, one of the 9 great sects, actually wants to use such an excuse to deal with me? Do you really think this emperor doesn't know that the ones who surrounded me and forced the poison out of me were experts from your Violet Thunder sect? Since you've already done such a despicable thing, why do you still need to put up a front? Why should I fear you? Arrogant. Since you don't know how to repent, I shall let you die here today." The old man from the Violet Thunder sect roared. In this vast space, over 10 celestial phenomenon ascendants erupted forth with terrifying might. Behind the human emperor, Shi Xian and the others appeared, protecting the safety of the royal concubine and prince. Shi Xian stepped out, wanting to participate in the battle, yet the human emperor waved his hands, "Just help me protect them. If they cause chaos, I'll kill them as well." As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian only felt his body being flung towards the direction of Shi Xian, not allowing him to be affected by the aftershocks of the battle. All of you have seen it clearly. In the world of cultivation, there's no such thing as logic. Whoever's fist is harder, would be the logic. In the future, no matter which path you all choose to walk, don't place your hopes on others. For the so-called great sects and clans, in the face of benefits, their masks will be torn apart. Only when you are strong enough will you be able to do what you want to do, protect the people you love, and stand above the heavens and earth. As the human emperor spoke, his constellation coalesced behind him. His astral novas fused together with his constellation, transforming into a constellation. The spectators only saw a supreme silhouette standing proudly in the skies. His palms shone with a terrifying destructive light, as well as a torrential tempest. It was unknown how fearsome it was. Back then, I was able to seize the position of the human emperor, leaving behind countless corpses. Today, I can similarly kill all of you, cleansing the traitors. After speaking, the human emperor roared in rage. In an instant, his palms blasted out explosively, extending over 10,000 meters, grabbing towards the Qi King and the others. The Qi King and the others roared in rage, unleashing their strongest attacks. However, this destructive palm imprint seemed to be able to destroy everything. Everywhere it passed by, nothing could block it. The palm imprint directly grabbed onto the body of the Han King, incomparably tyrannical. No! The Han King howled in rage, only to see the human emperor staring at him as his voice turned cold. "Traitors, die without mercy." As the sound of his voice faded, the palm imprint abruptly clenched, causing the Han King's body to disintegrate into nothingness, not even leaving behind a single residue. Such a scene caused the hearts of Qin Wentian and the others to tremble. The human emperor was a character that could sweep through an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. Those transcendent powers of Grand Xia in the past couldn't even withstand a single strike from him. How can this be? The poison in your body. The Qi King turned ashen. At this moment, the might of the human emperor was extremely tyrannical. This was definitely his combat prowess at his peak. The poison in this emperor's body has long been neutralized by the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley and my foster son, Qin Wentian. Today shall be the day of your deaths. The human emperor roared, his words causing the hearts of many to tremble. The poison in the human emperor's body was actually neutralized. Chapter 547. This is impossible. The old man from the Violet Thunder sect was also frowning, he didn't believe this was real. How could the poison be cured? Only the Medicine Sovereign from the Medicine Sovereign Valley could cure it. Although Mo Wentian was the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, she had just stepped into the 5th-ranked alchemist realm. It was impossible for her to cure the blood poison. Although Qin Wentian's talent was extraordinary, he was merely a disciple of the battle sword sect. How could he possibly cure the blood poison? However, the aura of the human emperor now was extremely domineering. He had definitely recovered to his peak, killing the Frost King in a domineering manner. His aura wasn't chaotic at all, and his countenance was ruddy with no signs of being poisoned. Evidently, he had already fully recovered. They had thought of all sorts of methods to wait for the human emperor's injuries to worsen, even waiting for the poison to erupt before acting. Yet, they had never expected that the human emperor would be at his peak state, Yi Qingyun. The experts below all exuded a terrifying aura as they protected their juniors. They stared at the human emperor with a frown on their faces. Initially, they thought that the human emperor would die after today's battle. At that time, they would be able to snatch the treasures they needed. Who would have thought that the human emperor had actually fully recovered? This made things difficult for them. Yi, the war country, the Spirit One country, as well as the Li clan and the barbarian tribe were the strongest powers in the southern regions of the royal sacred region. The only ones stronger than them were the Battle Sword sect and the Violet Thunder sect. Everyone knew the reason why they gathered here today. From the moment they stepped into the royal palace of Yi, many things had already been decided. Even if they wanted to retreat now, it was already too late. The arrow was already knocked on the bowstring, there was no way out. Staring at that incomparably arrogant silhouette, the crowd recalled some of the secrets of the human emperor. The human emperor of Yi, Yi Qingyun, was once unknown until 200 years ago when his name was engraved in the most dazzling position on the immortal martial realm monument. He was ranked number 1 in the immortal martial realm, and from then on, his meteoric rise to the skies. He was envied by the heaven chosen of Yi at that time, and they allied together to hunt him down. In a single battle, they were all annihilated by him. Yi Qingyun brought the heads of the heaven chosen of Yi into the royal palace, and from then on, he became the crown prince. The hearts of the crowd mused. From then on, no one could obstruct Yi Qingyun's path to the throne. Even though there were many bloody battles, he was always victorious. Many people guessed that when the human emperor stepped into the immortal martial realm back then, he must have had some sort of miraculous encounter that allowed him to transform, allowing him to have his current achievements. That was only when the human emperor was poisoned did this matter gradually surfaced. This was the purpose of their gathering. Qi King, who was the one who poisoned you? The human emperor stared at the Qi King as he coldly asked. Even now, he was still suspecting who was the one who poisoned him. Although this poison was extremely powerful, it was impossible for it to enter his body for no reason at all. There must be a reason why the human emperor didn't do anything during this period of time because he suspected that the one who poisoned him was someone close to him. A malevolent expression appeared on the Qi King's face as he coldly replied, "You will never know." Once the war starts, I wonder how long it would take for our Yi country to recover. Our loved ones will feel pain, our enemies will feel joy. Qi King, Su King, you guys truly deserve death. The human emperor slowly walked out, his aura towering up into the sky. Right now, there was no longer any poison in his body and he didn't need to be restrained like before. How could the Qi King and the others not die? Although he understood that this calamity originated from the outside, with the internal strife in Yi, the nobility of the Yi country had been destroyed, causing their overall strength to plummet, he had no other choice. Those who betrayed him had to be killed. Leaving them alive would only lead to endless troubles in the future. Since they had done such a thing, they had to be responsible for it. As the sound of his voice faded, the human emperor Yi Qingyun stepped out once more as the constellation behind him radiated a towering might. The Qi King, Su King, and the others all retreated with explosive speed, gathering together with the experts from the Violet Thunder sect. From afar, a few more terrifying auras gushed over, these were none other than the experts from the Violet Thunder sect. Since all pretense of cordiality had already been torn apart, there was no longer a need to hide. Who else is there? Scram out here for me. What do I, Yi Qingyun, have to fear? The human emperor roared, radiating an emperor's might. His palms expanded once more as he grabbed towards the Su king. You dare! The kings and marquises howled in rage. Momentarily, numerous beams of resplendent light blasted towards the gigantic arm. However, the human emperor coldly snorted as he stomped on the air. His body moved forwards as the astral light from his constellation grew even more intense, shining on his arm. Die! All the attacks that blocked his path were completely destroyed. That gigantic arm seemed to be able to pluck down the sun, moon, and constellations. The Su king howled in rage as his entire body ignited in flames. However, when that arm grabbed over, the entire heavens and earth seemed to be engulfed by it. The Su king felt that he was exceptionally tiny and inconsequential, trapped within. There was no way for him to escape from the might of that grab. Bang! The arm grabbed downwards as a thunderous boom rang out. The Su king's body was reduced to dust. The strength of the human emperor, Yi Qingyun, was so powerful that it caused the hearts of many to tremble. The nobility characters of Yi couldn't even withstand a single strike from him. No wonder he, Yi Qingyun, was the human emperor, unrivaled by anyone. At this moment, the ascendants had already surrounded the human emperor, Yi Qingyun. Their bodies radiated terrifying constellations as all sorts of destructive chi flowed through the air, cascading downwards. If someone below the celestial phenomenon realm were to stand in their way, they would definitely die instantly. Join forces and kill him. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect coldly commanded. The constellation behind him soared up into the air, shining down on the human emperor, transforming into a terrifying prison that wanted to imprison the human emperor. Royal Father. From afar, the son of the human emperor, as well as Yi Lingshuang and the rest all had expressions of worry on their faces. Although they were happy in their hearts that the poison in the human emperor's body was cured, and they were even more grateful to Mo Qingcheng and Qin Wentian, how could they not be worried for the human emperor's life when they saw the current situation? Even the experts from the Violet Thunder sect had joined forces to surround the human emperor. Don't worry, just watch carefully. Today is only the beginning. The human emperor seemed to have heard the voices of Yi Lingshuang and the others. He roared loudly, appearing incomparably heroic as the light from his constellation grew even more intense, transforming into an incomparably scorching axe light that directly slashed apart the prison. However, a towering pressure bore down on the human emperor. Destructive lightning bolts, killing gigantic swords, saber lights that could slice apart the void, all of them gushed towards the human emperor. Every single attack was incomparably terrifying. Their eyes and perception had no way to keep up with the speed of the attacks. The human emperor blasted out with both his palms as countless arms manifested around him, blotting out the sun. All of them erupted forth, causing the entire space to tremble. The countenances of the experts surrounding him turned cold. They simultaneously pressed downwards, wanting to engage in close-range combat with the human emperor. This would be even more dangerous, and in addition, they had the advantage in numbers. If they engaged in close-range combat, the speed of their attacks would be even faster. Even if the human emperor was stronger, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Qi King, what are you hiding for? Don't you want this emperor's position? The human emperor roared. Boundless attacks rained down on him, slamming into his defenses. However, the human emperor ignored all of them. Rumbling sounds of destruction ravaged the area, yet it was as though he didn't see it at all. His body soared up into the air as his enlarged arms frenziedly stretched out towards the Qi King. Impudent! That expert from the Violet Thunder sect roared in rage. A bolt of lightning flashed past, transforming into a blade of light that slashed apart everything. It collided head-on with the human emperor's enlarged arms, yet it actually failed to sever them. Scram! A gigantic axe appeared on the human emperor's arms as he slashed out. That expert retreated with explosive speed, yet another palm imprint appeared, grabbing towards the Qi King. The Qi King's silhouette soared through the air, unceasingly distancing himself. However, the human emperor's killing intent was extremely strong. How can you not die? The human emperor roared in rage. Numerous attacks blasted into his surroundings. Those experts were all enraged as they frenziedly attacked. The human emperor actually disregarded everything, wanting to kill the Qi king. Rumble. Finally, the astral palm imprint grabbed hold of the human emperor. The destructive energy instantly caused the Qi king to suffer heavy injuries. He unceasingly coughed out blood as his countenance was filled with terror. When the human emperor disregarded everything, wanting to kill him, the disparity between the two of them was actually so great. At the celestial phenomenon realm, the disparity in comprehension and cultivation level was sufficient to cause the disparity in combat prowess to be exceedingly great. For experts on the same level, even the more powerful ones could insta-kill ordinary people. When the human emperor captured the Qi king, his perception was already focused on those closest to him. Earlier, the countenance of a beautiful maiden beside the empress clearly changed. Concubine Yun, this emperor has always treated you well. Why are you treating me like this? The human emperor roared in rage. Momentarily, the countenance of that maiden drastically changed. The empress stared at her, her countenance cold to the extreme as her killing intent gushed forth. Die! The human emperor roared. Instantly, the body of the Qi king vanished into thin air. At the same time, the empress acted against concubine Yun. Although her strength wasn't as strong as the human emperor, she was still extremely powerful. Concubine Yun couldn't defend against her at all. Yi Qing Yun, you are courting death. A thunderous roar rang out. Although the human emperor had domineeringly slain the Qi king, he was also injured consecutively. His body was dyed red with blood, causing Yi Lingshuang and the others to be even more nervous. Qin Wentian was also closely watching this battle, his heart pounding. This battle was already so intense, and the experts from the ancient empires below were also eyeing the human emperor like a tiger watching its prey. Most probably, things wouldn't be so simple. This time around, the human emperor was facing a calamity. Want to kill me? You guys aren't qualified yet. The human emperor roared in rage. Every step he took caused the heavens and earth to tremble. The experts from the Qin clan all suppressed him, not allowing him to leave the battlefield. Yi Qingyun, just dig out the treasure that fused into your body. Why must you fight to the death? Another expert from the Violet Thunder sect coldly roared. Yi Qingyun howled in rage as both his palms pressed forth, akin to the destruction of a constellation. That expert howled in rage as a golden screen of light appeared before him, yet it was instantly shattered. The terrifying might of the attack forced him backwards as he coughed out fresh blood, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. To think that you guys are from the Violet Thunder sect, do you really think that a mere treasure would be able to change the aptitude of a person? Back then in the immortal martial realm, this emperor did indeed obtain a treasure and fused it into my body. But do you really think that my transformation started from that? You basically don't understand the heart of an expert. The human emperor roared, stepping out consecutively. His body glowed with the light of a treasure as a gigantic heaven-cleaving axe appeared. Terrifying beams of light slashed out in all directions, causing blood to flow unceasingly. A weaker celestial phenomenon ascendant was directly slain, causing the countenances of the others to be extremely unsightly to behold. Initially, they thought that the human emperor, Yi Qingyun, was already deeply poisoned. Chapter 548. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect were incomparably depressed. As members of the 9 great sects, their status was above ancient countries. There were 2 reasons why they came up with this plan to deal with the human emperor. The first reason was because they wanted to bestow the treasures on the human emperor to the supreme heaven chosen of their Violet Thunder sect, allowing that supreme heaven chosen to enter the immortal martial realm and dominate all the geniuses from the ancient clans, and sects, seizing the position of the top ranker of the immortal martial realm. The immortal martial realm opened once every 10 years, and now it was time for it to open again. This time around, it was unknown how many heaven chosen would be able to enter, causing a commotion in the royal sacred region. Geniuses would all gather here, competing for supremacy in the immortal martial realm. When they exited the immortal martial realm, it was unknown how much of a storm they would cause in the royal sacred region. In the royal sacred region, the immortal martial realm opened once every 10 years. For those who could obtain the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, as long as they didn't die, they would all become characters of great influence in the royal sacred region. The human emperor of Yi, Yi Qingyun, was precisely one of the top rankers of the immortal martial realm. He had long dominated the entire Yi country, becoming the emperor of a generation. Now, his cultivation base had already reached the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, his strength towering the heavens. Right now, there were so many experts from the Violet Thunder sect as well as those from the nobility of Yi, yet they were all killed by him one after another. From this, one could tell how powerful the human emperor was. Not to mention the top ranker, even the top 3 rankers of the immortal martial realm would have great accomplishments in the future. Naturally, the immortal martial realm also had another name, the burial ground of geniuses. Every time the immortal martial realm opened, it was unknown how many heaven-chosen would fall within, their bones buried within. Hence, the immortal martial realm had always been a place that people loved and hated at the same time. But for the heaven-chosen of the royal sacred region, they had to enter. This was an opportunity. How could geniuses be ranked behind others? If they didn't dare to advance because of danger, how would they have the qualifications to stand at the top of the world? As for the fact that the Violet Thunder sect participated in the plot against the human emperor, they naturally didn't do it for the treasures. There was another important reason: they wanted to control the ancient Yi country. The competition between the 9 great sects of the royal sacred region was extremely intense. Not only that, there were also many ancient countries, clans, and sects eyeing them like tigers eyeing their prey, threatening their position. Even for a power like the Violet Thunder sect, they had no choice but to be vigilant in times of peace. If they could gain control of the Yi country and make it a subsidiary of their Violet Thunder sect, the Violet Thunder sect would undoubtedly grow even stronger. It was precisely because of these 2 points that the battle today occurred. It was just that the Violet Thunder sect had never imagined that their plan would actually fail. The human emperor's poison was neutralized, his combat prowess towered up into the heavens. Even with so many celestial phenomenon ascendants, they had no way to suppress him. Only to see at this moment, among the experts from the Violet Thunder sect, a terrifying lightning glow flashed in his eyes. With a low snort, an instant later, a brilliant light enveloped him, blotting out the sun. It was as though this entire space was enveloped by the lightning constellation. Amidst the resplendent lightning, a giant thunderbird appeared. It was incomparably ferocious and evil. Bathed in lightning, it was like an ancient ferocious bird that covered everyone. With a loud cry, the ferocious bird's claws smashed down. Endless lightning struck down from the sky, destroying everything in its path. There's only one person in the Violet Thunder sect who possesses this constellation. To think that the 7 supremacies of the Violet Thunder sect are all here, they truly regard this emperor highly. A loud voice thundered out. The human emperor stomped on the ground, using only his palms to blast out at the air. The energy he blasted out transformed into resplendent constellations, and with a single strike, the 7 supremacies of the Violet Thunder sect had no way to gain the slightest advantage. As expected of the human emperor of Yi, his combat prowess was truly tyrannical. If the 7 supremacies of the Violet Thunder sect fought against the human emperor alone, it would be hard for them to defeat him. Since the 7 supremacies of the Violet Thunder sect had already stepped out, there was no need for them to hide anymore. They fought against the human emperor, and the commotion caused by the battle shook the heavens and earth. The gazes of the crowd stared up in the air, only to see the terrifying ball of light engulfing the heavens and earth. They could faintly see the ferocious bird and the constellations clashing madly against each other, as well as a towering arm grabbing out, wanting to tear everything apart. The Empress had already killed concubine Yun. Right now, they were all staring at the battle in the air with expressions of extreme worry on their faces. Shi Xian, bring some men to kill them. The Empress spoke to Shi Xian who was in front of her. Empress, the human emperor has ordered us to protect you all. Without his command, I can't make any decisions on my own. Shi Xian replied, his words causing the beautiful eyes of the Empress to stiffen. She understood that Shi Xian only listened to the orders of the human emperor. Not only that, the reason why the human emperor wanted them to protect her was because he wanted to guard against the other experts. Not only that, the experts from the War Country and Spirit One Country had yet to act. It was evident that the human emperor was extremely wary of them. Since foster father has made such an arrangement, I'm sure I can handle it myself. Qin Wentian consoled. The empress could only nod her head. Although her countenance was as calm as ever, her palms were already covered in sweat. Human emperor, dig out the treasures in your body. We can forget about it today, but do you really want to fight to the death? A roar of rage rang out, only to hear the human emperor laughing uproariously. Even at this point in time, you still dare to boast? How ridiculous. If I don't make your Violet Thunder sect pay a heavy price today, how can I let you all learn your lesson? If not, I, Yi Qingyun, will be so easily bullied. Amidst the maniacal laughter, the battle continued. The spectators on the outside couldn't see clearly what was happening in the air, they could only see the violent shockwaves. Luckily, the area they were fighting in was higher and higher, preventing the shockwaves from reaching the ground. But even so, there were still some destructive shockwaves that blasted the earth apart, tearing the ancient halls apart. Below, the eyes of the Li clan's expert flickered. Beside him, Li Hanyu was also frowning as she stared at the battle in the air. She silently mused, the Battle Sword sect should be aware of what happened in the Yi country. Since Master sent people here, she must have the intention of interfering in the internal affairs of the Yi country. But why hasn't Master's people appeared yet? The War Country and Spirit One Country probably didn't expect such a tragic situation to occur. Li Hanyu glanced at the spectators, only to see the Crown Prince of the War Country nodding to her with a smile on his face. Upon seeing the warm smile on the Crown Prince's face, Li Hanyu nodded in return. After all, the Crown Prince of the War Country had outstanding talent and his status wasn't inferior to hers. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the rumbling sounds in the air finally ceased. Boundless astral light cascaded downwards as the constellations dissipated. Finally, the spectators could clearly see the silhouettes in the air. Only to see that at this moment, only 3 people were still standing there. The others had all perished, leaving nothing behind. Under the might of that tyrannical attack, even the human emperor was reduced to ashes. The human emperor was bathed in blood, yet the supreme shadow sovereign still stood behind him. He stood there arrogantly, as though he would never be defeated. Of the 2 remaining experts, one was the head supremacy of the Violet Thunder sect, while the other was similarly an extremely powerful character from the Violet Thunder sect. Right now, their auras were fluctuating wildly, their bodies dyed red with blood. The head supremacy of the Violet Thunder sect even had one of his arms broken. The intensity of this battle was sufficient to shock the entire southern domain. Yi Qingyun. That head supremacy's voice was hoarse, his eyes flashing with towering killing intent. The battle today had caused the Violet Thunder sect to lose all face, and they had suffered heavy casualties. What a pity. My Yi country has fallen into a battle for the throne, the various nobility factions plotted to kill me. The other nobility royal uncles also chose to remain neutral, not participating in the battle for the throne. Maybe, they were afraid of the might of your Violet Thunder sect. However, I, Yi Qingyun, used this battle to tell them that the matters of my Yi country shall be settled by my Yi country. Outsiders like you have no right to interfere. Even if the Violet Thunder sect covets my Yi country, they would still have to pay a heavy price. The human emperor spoke in arrogance. Fine. At this moment, a voice rang out as a few more terrifying auras gushed forth. Although these auras weren't as strong as the human emperor Yi Qingyun, they still possessed the might of the various nobility factions. A voice drifted over from afar. After the human emperor was poisoned, we initially thought that the Yi country had already lost its momentum. Yet who would have thought that you, Qingyun, would still be so courageous? We are the ones who are useless, causing the Yi country to suffer such losses today. Ha, royal uncles, there's no need for you to take it to heart. The Qi King and the other nobility factions have the ambition of wolves. This has already caused the royal clan to be unable to rest in peace, and there's no need to clean up the clan. It's just that those who dared to encroach on the Yi country have to pay the price. Yi Qingyun laughed. Although he was heavily injured, his voice was filled with a heroic aura. In truth, everyone understood in their hearts that there was no cure for the human emperor's poison. With the Qi King and the Violet Thunder sect joining forces, the Yi country had already lost its momentum. Other than the human emperor Yi Qingyun, who else could contend against the alliance of the Qi King and the Violet Thunder sect? The various kings chose to remain neutral because they had no choice but to do so. But after the battle today erupted, the human emperor Yi Qingyun was incomparably domineering, slaying all the ascendants in the royal palace of the Yi country. Human emperor, why must you do this? Now that the immortal martial realm is about to open again, the crown prince of my war country has extraordinary talent and I wish to borrow the treasure in your body. Is it possible? The Grand Marshal King of the war country stood up, staring at the human emperor in the air. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying might swept through the air, incomparably tyrannical. The war country and Yi country were both ancient countries with a history of over 10,000 years. The Grand Marshal King was the strongest nobility faction in the war country, there was no need to mention how tyrannical his strength was. Right now, although the human emperor stood proudly in the air, he was already heavily injured and had no strength to resist. Isn't Princess Tianluan also someone with outstanding talent? She also wishes to borrow the treasure in your body. The female general from the Spirit Luan country, Qing Xian, spoke. The experts from the barbarian race and Li clan all stood up. Although they didn't say anything, they had already expressed their stance. Seems like all of you are determined to obtain it. The human emperor coldly spoke as he stared downwards. Since we have already stepped into the royal palace of Yi, everything is already determined. We must obtain it no matter what. The Grand Marshal King continued, we only want the treasure. Ha ha ha. The human emperor laughed maniacally as he stared downwards. The immortal martial realm is about to open, the royal sacred region will once again be in chaos. I know all of you are paving the way for the most outstanding disciples of your clans, wanting them to start from the immortal martial realm and walk on the path of chaos, sweeping away all geniuses, suppressing the era-suppressing geniuses. But what's laughable is that you all coveted a mere treasure. No matter what, that's our problem, there's no need for the human emperor to worry about it. I hope the human emperor can consider this for the sake of Yi. An expert from the Li clan spoke, his words laced with a hint of threat. Now that the strength of Yi country was severely damaged, if the human emperor died, it would be the end of Yi country. He, no matter what, the daughter of the human emperor, Yi Lingshuang is a disciple of my battle sword sect. When has it ever been your turn to behave atrociously here? From afar in the air, a voice filled with arrogance drifted over. Outside the royal palace of Yi, a terrifying aura gushed over. The human emperor stared in that direction as a cold smile appeared in his eyes. However, there was a hint of desolation in his smile. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness has personally arrived. The countenances of the experts from the Li clan changed as they stared at Li Hanyu. If the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness also wanted the treasure, it was definitely not because of Li Hanyu. Although Li Hanyu was the personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, there was an even more outstanding character among the disciples of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness that was highly regarded by the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Today, the human emperor was destined to die. Chapter 549. This person was none other than one of the 9 sword sovereigns of the Battle Sword sect, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. She was also Li Hanyu's master. At the instant she appeared, the gazes of everyone landed on her. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was still as young and beautiful as ever, looking to be in her 30s. However, her countenance was solemn, and her eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of life. From this, one could see that she wasn't young anymore. It was only because of her strength that she looked young. Everyone recalled the rumors regarding the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. This woman's way of doing things was eccentric and willful, doing whatever she wanted, never listening to the opinions of others. She was lofty and aloof, and even the sect leader of the Battle Sword sect would find it hard to persuade her. This was the uniqueness of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. The disciples of the Battle Sword sect all had their own personalities, and the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was a perfect example. Although she was known to be ruthless, she was also extremely protective of her disciples. Her requirements were extremely harsh and strict. This was the first time Qin Wentian met the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Indeed, her personality was just like her voice, giving off an aura of arrogance, akin to a plum blossom standing proudly in winter. "Master!" Li Hanyu called out. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness glanced at her before nodding her head lightly. "Old witch, are you here for the treasure in my body as well?" The human emperor Yi Qingyun laughed. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness frowned when she heard how Yi Qingyun addressed her, but she wasn't truly angered. The human emperor was from the same generation as her, and the two of them were acquainted when they were young. There were many conflicts between them, and as time passed, their cultivation bases grew stronger and stronger. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was still as beautiful as ever, hence, Yi Qingyun referred to her as an old witch. Yi Lingshuang was somewhat worried. Although the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was also a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, her status was extremely high. She wouldn't care about an ordinary disciple like her. Also, based on her personality, who could stop her from doing what she wanted? If she was truly here for the human emperor's treasure, she wouldn't give up so easily. "This treasure is of some use to me." The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness spoke. The human emperor coldly snorted as he stared at the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, "So it turns out that you are also such a vulgar person. Just a mere treasure, do you really think you can dominate the immortal martial realm? In this place, only you, old witch, are from the Battle Sword sect. If you want it, I can give it to you." "Royal Father." Yi Lingshuang's countenance stiffened as she called out. The disciples of the Battle Sword sect all took a step forward. Duan Han stared up in the air as he called out, "Martial uncle, why must you force her against her will? In any case, do you really think that junior sister Lu needs to rely on treasures to contend for the top spot in the immortal martial realm?" Duan Han already understood the meaning of the human emperor's words. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness sat down. Her favorite disciple was none other than her personal disciple, Lu Bingyu. Lu Bingyu's talent was outstanding, and even among the Heavenly Dipper Sovereigness of the Battle Sword sect, she could be considered one of the most outstanding characters. Evidently, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness had high hopes for her. "Duan Han, this is my business. This time around, you will also be entering the immortal martial realm. Remember not to tarnish the reputation of my Battle Sword sect." The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness emotionlessly spoke. Duan Han was a disciple under Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, she naturally knew him. As for the others, she wasn't very familiar with them. In the blink of an eye, it became the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigns guiding Duan Han, causing the disciples of the Battle Sword sect to be speechless. They also knew that they didn't have the ability to change the mind of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigns. At this moment, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness turned her gaze onto the members of the Li clan below as she spoke, "Han Yu is my disciple. Can the members of the Li clan give this seat some face and not interfere in this matter?" Li Hanyu's beautiful eyes flashed as she glanced at her second grandpa beside her. Her second grandpa's eyes flickered. The combat prowess of the human emperor was towering above the heavens. Although he was heavily injured, the strength of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness should be close to that of the human emperor. If they fought, they wouldn't be able to gain any benefits. As he thought of this, he laughed heartily. "Since the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness has spoken, I won't interfere in this matter anymore." He was someone who could take things in stride. He originally didn't have absolute confidence in today's matter, and with the appearance of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, his confidence grew even smaller. Hence, he might as well give up. If the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness treated Li Hanyu better in the future and guided her, it wouldn't be a bad ending. "Many thanks." The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness nodded. After which, she turned her gaze onto the members of the Violet Thunder sect as she coldly spoke, "Why are you all still not scramming? How long do you want to continue embarrassing yourselves? You. What status did the supremacy of the Violet Thunder sect have?" His status was equivalent to the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness in the Battle Sword sect. Yet, he was actually angered by a single sentence from the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. However, he only saw the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness countenance turning sharp as a surge of coldness gushed forth, enveloping the heavens and earth. At the same time, there were several silhouettes standing behind the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, as though a battle would break out at the slightest disagreement. He understood that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness definitely had the guts to back him up. "See you again in the future." The supremacy of the Violet Thunder sect coldly snorted. After which, his silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. Today, the internal conflict in the Yi country had caused the strength of the ancient country to plummet. But the one who truly lost face was the Violet Thunder sect. Their losses were exceedingly heavy, and now, they even had to return in defeat. If this matter were to spread, it would be a stain on the Violet Thunder sect's reputation. All of you, remember this well. In the distance, a surging shout resounded like thunder, and it shook the sky and revealed monstrous rage. How could the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness care about threats? She turned her gaze downwards once more. Right now, only the three transcendent powers remained. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness faintly spoke, "Do you all want to vie with me?" The Grand Marshal King of the War Country frowned, silently musing at how powerful this woman was. With just a few words, she was able to make the Li clan give up and chase away the experts from the Violet Thunder sect. In that case, it was clear that she was the leader. The experts from the Spirit One country and the barbarian race were all staring at her. After which, the female general from the Spirit One country spoke, "I've always respected the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, an outstanding talent amongst females. In today's matter, if the human Emperor of Yi is willing to hand over the treasure to the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, I will definitely not snatch it away." This female general was truly intelligent. If the human emperor truly took the initiative to hand over the treasure to the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, there was no way they would be able to snatch it away from her hands. Since this is the case, I will do the same. An expert from the barbarian race nodded. A strange light flashed in the eyes of the Grand Marshal King as he replied, "If this is the case, I have nothing else to say." Only then did the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness feel satisfied. She then turned her gaze onto the human emperor as she slowly stated, "I heard that the treasure has already fused together with you. In order to compensate you, if your daughter Yiling Shuang is willing to enter my tutelage, I am willing to accept her as my disciple." The human emperor's countenance was as calm as ever. He turned his head and stared at Yiling Shuang as he asked, "Ling Shuang, what do you think?" Yiling Shuang's countenance was filled with coldness as she stared at the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. She replied, "Today, all the transcendent powers were pressuring my royal father. My royal father single-handedly fought against all of them, killing over 10 celestial phenomenon ascendants. How glorious was that? Yet there's actually someone who took advantage of him when he was in a precarious position. No matter how weak I, Yiling Shuang, am, it's beneath me to be her disciple." "Humph," the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness coldly snorted, her eyes flashing with sharpness. Yiling Shuang didn't show any signs of weakness, staring back at her as she icily spoke, "Although you are an elder, I should respect you. But based on your actions, even if we meet again in the sect in the future, I won't bow to you. You should already know that so many experts were here today. If it wasn't for the fact that my royal father was ambushed from all directions, how could there be a chance for you to interfere? This seat won't hold it against you for today's matter. But if you dare to be so disrespectful again in the future, don't blame this seat for teaching you a lesson on behalf of the human emperor." The countenance of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was ice cold, yet Yiling Shuang's gaze was as stubborn as ever as she stared at her. "Fine." The human emperor laughed uproariously. As expected of the daughter of Yi Qingyun. I already knew the ending of today's matter, I only wanted to let you all see clearly what happened, allowing you all to feel the glory of the great sections. The winner is the king, the loser is the vilified, the strong are revered. How could I, Yi Qingyun, care about a mere treasure? After speaking, his palms abruptly grabbed towards his chest. A light sound rang out as fresh blood spurted out. The human emperor Yi Qingyun had actually plunged his palms into his body, causing blood and flesh to appear. Human emperor. Royal father. Numerous cries of shock rang out, the members of the royal clan were all taken aback. Yi Lingshuang's countenance paled, and even the spectators from the Battle Sword Sect and Medicine Sovereign Valley could feel a deep sense of sorrow in their hearts. How imposing was the human emperor of Yi? There was no fear in his countenance when he fought against so many experts, and even after killing so many, he still stood proudly in the sky. But in the end, he still couldn't win against the pressure of so many experts, resulting in him suffering such humiliation. Duan Han and the other disciples from the Battle Sword Sect all had expressions of respect on their faces. The human emperor of Yi was as expected of a hero of his generation. His demeanor was truly admirable. The matter regarding the Plum Mountain Sword sovereignness caused them to feel extremely unhappy. Don't worry about it. The human emperor waved his hands when he saw everyone wanting to step forward. After which, his palms trembled as a small axe appeared from within his body. The axe light shone resplendently, exuding a terrifying might. A mere treasure. Could it be that my rise really depended on it? Ridiculous to the extreme. Take it. The human emperor flicked his palms as the small axe flew towards the Plum Mountain Sword sovereignness. Fresh blood flowed unceasingly from his body, revealing his flesh and bones. This treasure was indeed able to fuse with his flesh and bones, and had long become one with him. This was why he had to use such a bloody method to dig it out. The Plum Mountain Sword sovereignness waved her hands, catching the small axe. The human emperor coldly spoke, I really want to see what rank your disciple, Lu Bingyu, can obtain in the immortal martial realm this time around. There's no need for you to worry. The Plum Mountain Sword sovereignness kept the treasure. Since she came here personally, she naturally had high hopes for Lu Bingyu. This treasure was obtained by the human emperor Yi Qingyun back then in the immortal martial realm. If it was fused with Lu Bingyu's body, it might be able to guide Lu Bingyu in the immortal martial realm. Not only that, the immortal martial realm rejected external divine weapons. With this treasure, Lu Bingyu's chances would naturally be much higher. She could only hope that Lu Bingyu wouldn't let her down. At this moment, the sound of wind whistling could be heard from afar. The countenances of the crowd froze as they inclined their heads and stared in the direction of the sound. Over there, 3 silhouettes could be seen flying over. These 3 people had extraordinary auras and were clad in long white robes. Upon seeing these 3, the countenances of the crowd all changed. What were the envoys of the immortal martial realm doing here? The 3 of them floated in the air, their countenances calm. One of them swept his gaze downwards, and with a wave of his hand, an ancient medallion flew out in the direction of Yi Lingshuang and the others. Qin Wentian's gaze froze. This medallion was actually flying towards him, and an instant later, it descended before him. Momentarily, the countenances of the crowd all turned to Qin Wentian, as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. The envoys of the immortal martial realm personally delivered the medallion. Chapter 550. The eyes of the Plum Mountain Sword sovereignness similarly gleamed with sharpness as she stared at Qin Wentian. This young man was none other than the one who rejected her request to become her disciple. Now, she came here to ask for a treasure for her disciple Lu Bingyu, forcing the human emperor to agree to the immortal martial realm's medallion. Qin Wentian held the medallion in his hands as he inclined his head, staring at the white-robed emissary in the air. Every 10 years, the immortal martial realm opens. I hope you will be able to enter the immortal martial realm and obtain some good fortune. Don't miss this opportunity. The emissary nodded his head to Qin Wentian. After which, their silhouettes flickered as they directly departed, not bothering to look at anyone else. Very quickly, they vanished from the royal palace of Yi, flying towards the horizons. Below, the crown prince of the war country, Princess Luan and Li Hanyu all had strange looks on their faces as their countenances turned incredibly unsightly. Even the disciples of the battle sword sect had looks of envy on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian. This fellow was actually so highly regarded by the emissary of the immortal martial realm, to the extent that they personally sent him a medallion to invite him. Junior brother Qin, although this medallion doesn't have much use, it shows how highly the immortal martial realm regards you. Hence, they personally came here to send you a medallion, hoping that you won't miss this opportunity to enter the immortal martial realm. In the history of the immortal martial realm, only a total of 81 people in the entire royal sacred region managed to obtain this medallion. I didn't get one, neither did the crown prince of the war country or Princess Luan. You mustn't miss this time around. Duan Han, who was beside him, transmitted his voice to Qin Wentian. For those who are highly regarded by the immortal martial realm envoys, they would all have outstanding performances in the immortal martial realm and be ranked on the ranking monument. Qin Wentian silently nodded his head. Although he had some suspicions in his heart, he decided to ask about the immortal martial realm later. At this moment, he inclined his head and stared at the air. His foster father was the human emperor of a generation, exuding a heroic aura, yet he was forced to dig out his own bones to obtain a treasure. How tragic was that? With the medallion in his hands, Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, you took advantage of the human emperor when he was in a precarious situation, forcing the human emperor to dig out his bones to retrieve the treasure and gift it to your disciple. Sword Sovereigness, you are the Sword Sovereigness of the human emperor of the sect emperor. You can do whatever you want, no one can restrict you. Yet, your actions today caused the human emperor of the human emperor to be. You are the mountain lord of the battle sword sect, no one can restrain you for your reckless actions. Yet, your actions tarnished the reputation of the battle sword sect. Even if you wanted to seize the treasure, we wouldn't have anything to say if it was a fair and square battle. But for your actions today, as juniors, we all look down on you. Qin Wentian coldly stated, his words causing the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness to coldly laugh. Today, if I don't seize that treasure, Yi Qingyun wouldn't be able to protect it. Let alone the matters this seat does, when have you got the right to interfere? Today, this seat will not bully you. If you go to the immortal martial realm, the disciples under this seat will naturally teach you a lesson. After the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness spoke, she flicked her sleeves and brought her people away. She then spoke, Yi Qingyun, farewell. The human emperor stared at the departing silhouette of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness as he spoke. After which, he turned his gaze to the people below and spoke, farewell, Yi Qingyun. The human emperor stared at the departing silhouette of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness as he spoke. After which, he turned to the people below and spoke, everyone, please forgive me for not sending you off. These people were all from major powers in the southern domain. Today, they all believed that the human emperor would definitely die in the hands of the Qi king. Their original intention was to cause the Yi country to never recover from this setback. But who would have thought that things would change so drastically? Now that the human emperor was still alive, the other nobility of the Yi country were all willing to listen to Yi Qingyun's commands. If they wanted to destroy the Yi country, they would have to pay a heavy price. Hence, they naturally wouldn't do such a thing. Since this is the case, we will bid our farewell. Everyone stood up, smiling at Yi Qingyun as though they were good friends. Yi Qingyun merely watched on calmly. An instant later, they all departed, leaving the royal palace of the Yi country in the blink of an eye. After everyone left, Yi Qingyun groaned in misery as he coughed out a mouthful of blood. His countenance was pale white. Royal father. Human emperor. Everyone exclaimed in shock. Evidently, they had underestimated the severity of Yi Qingyun's injuries. How intense was the battle today? Even the 7 supremacies of the Violet Thunder sect appeared and participated in the encirclement of the human emperor. Yet, the Violet Thunder sect still suffered heavy casualties and had to retreat in the end. How could the human emperor retreat unscathed? He was already heavily injured, and now that he was forced to dig out his bones for the treasure, his injuries became even more severe. If it wasn't for that, based on the personality of the human emperor, even if the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was here, he would still choose to fight. However, he understood that if they fought again, he wouldn't be able to hold on. In addition, he was the human emperor of the Yi country, he didn't merely represent himself. If he died, the entire Yi country would be annihilated. As long as he was alive, he would be the pillar of the Yi country. Those ancient countries and clans could forget about ruining the foundations of the Yi country, even if the Yi country suffered heavy losses. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing's silhouettes flickered as they appeared in front of the human emperor. Mo Qingqing took out a bottle of medicinal pills and passed it to the human emperor. The human emperor smiled and directly accepted it. After which, he crushed the bottle and poured the medicinal pills into his mouth. He didn't stand on ceremony with Mo Qingqing. Qin Wentian was his foster son and Mo Qingqing would sooner or later become his wife, just like a daughter to him. After consuming the medicinal pills, a medicinal fragrance circulated around the human emperor as his wounds rapidly healed. He closed his eyes and meditated, the others didn't disturb him. An instant later, the human emperor's body shone with a resplendent light as his injuries recovered by a large margin. When he opened his eyes again, they shone with a resplendent light, as though he had regained his vigor. The human emperor turned and stared at the nobility experts, as well as Shi Xian and the rest. Pass down my command. The nobility of those who participated in the rebellion today shall be sealed up. Those who were involved in the rebellion shall be killed without mercy. As for those unrelated to the rebellion, including children, women and children, they shall be spared. Allow them to leave the Yi country. Human emperor, since things have come to this, we should cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. An old man spoke as a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. Don't worry about it. Since ancient times, the winner is the king while the losers are the vilified. I, Yi Qingyun, also trampled over countless corpses to ascend the throne. Why would I care about the revenge of those who came after me? In the future, if there's someone with the bloodline of my royal clan who can kill me openly and seize the position of the human emperor, I have nothing to say. I only hope that in the future when the royal clan of my Yi country fights for power, there's no need for me to say anything. The human emperor calmly spoke. Although he was decisive in killing, he wasn't willing to kill the children. In any case, who could guarantee that he, Yi Qingyun, would be able to live forever? Wasn't this the same as leaving a path of survival for his descendants? We obey the human emperor's command. Shi Xian and the rest bowed. After which, their silhouettes flickered as they carried out the human emperor's command. The human emperor then turned his gaze to the princes as he spoke, all of you have personally witnessed what happened today, I'm sure you've all been moved. Although your talents are ordinary, if your hearts and wills are resolute, so what if your cultivation speed is slower compared to others? The princes nodded their heads. The battle today had indeed moved their hearts. They were all very clear that if the human emperor was defeated today, the entire Yi country would collapse. They, their wives and children, wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. Right now, they had the protection of the human emperor, but if the human emperor wasn't here, who would be able to protect them? In the royal sacred region, there are countless ancient countries and great clans. However, the rise and fall of an ancient country is also extremely fast. It's hard to rise, but it's only a matter of time before they fall. My Yi country is an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. As long as one generation is weaker than the others, it would be the fate of our country's collapse. The human emperor mumbled. As he thought of this, traces of sorrow could be seen in his heart. The human emperor of an ancient country had no successor. Qin Wentian also sighed in his heart. An ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years, how could it not be coveted by others? If the human emperor didn't exist, the entire Yi country would collapse in a matter of days. This was the importance of strength at the peak. The reason why the 9 great sects were known as the 9 great sects was because they had many experts at the peak. The Battle Sword sect had 9 sword sovereigns, and the Violet Thunder sect had 7 supremacies. If the Yi country had 2 human emperors, or even more, how would the Spirit One country and the War country dare to step into it? Wentian, in the battle today, your battle was still the most shocking. Killing a 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign from the Violet Thunder sect. In addition to the battles that followed, it's impossible for the Violet Thunder sect's reputation to not be tarnished. Not only that, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness personally came here, yet the envoys from the Immortal Martial Realm actually sent over an Immortal Martial Medallion. One must know that the personal disciple of that old witch, Li Han Yu, was also present, yet she didn't receive an Immortal Martial Medallion. The human emperor laughed heartily as he thought of this. Qin Wentian was the only thing that could give him some comfort in his heart. Foster father, why would there be envoys from the Immortal Martial Realm sending over an Immortal Martial Medallion? Qin Wentian asked in bewilderment. The Immortal Martial Realm is a mystical place, the envoys are known to be omniscient. You comprehended 14 sword strikes in the Battle Sword sect, breaking the record of the Battle Sword sect, and now you even killed Yikong Fan. How many people in the Royal Sacred Region would be able to do that? What's so strange about sending over an Immortal Martial Medallion? You don't need to think too much about this. What you should do is to prepare for the Immortal Martial Realm. Is the Immortal Martial Realm a place where anyone can enter? Qin Wentian asked. Anyone below the Celestial Phenomenon Realm can enter. However, the Immortal Martial Realm is known as the burial ground of geniuses. Although there are good fortune within, unless one is a true genius, they would die for sure. Hence, those who enter the Immortal Martial Realm all have some foundations, and the majority of them would have a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper or above. After all, no divine weapons are allowed inside, and if one's cultivation base is too low, it would be very easy for them to die. Since this is the case, those at the peak of Heavenly Dipper would naturally have an advantage. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Right now, although he was at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, and could even slay 7th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, it would be extremely difficult for him to contend against those at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. You are wrong about this. The Immortal Martial Realm is a mystical place, and many times, talent is the most important. You will understand after you enter. For the ranking monument of the Immortal Martial Realm, those who are ranked at the top aren't those with the highest cultivation base, but rather, those with the highest talent. The human emperor explained. Duan Han walked up, junior brother Qin, this time around, all the disciples of our Battle Sword sect are going to enter. Let's not return to the sect and head straight to the Immortal Martial Realm. I'm sure the Immortal Martial Realm would definitely be a raging storm right now, and I wonder how many geniuses from the major sects would appear. It would be a pity to miss out on such a grand event. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. How vast was the Royal Sacred Region? There were ancient countries, great sects, and even ancient aristocratic clans and sections. There were countless geniuses there, and the opening of the Immortal Martial Realm was a grand event in the Royal Sacred Region. How could he miss it? He had to see for himself how glorious the geniuses of the Royal Sacred Region were. Chapter 551. In the ancient country of Yi, Yi Lingshuang and Qin Wentian accompanied the human emperor for a few more days until his injuries recovered. After that, Qin Wentian and the rest prepared to set off. Although there was still a period of time before the Immortal Martial Realm opened, heading to the Immortal Martial City in advance to take a look at the various geniuses of the Royal Sacred Region was something that everyone was filled with anticipation. In the royal palace, the human emperor stared at the group of young men before him. At this moment, the tyrannical and imposing aura he exuded during battle had already been retracted. He was now just like a gentle elder. Looking at all of you makes me think of myself in the past. The vicissitudes of time, 100 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Now that all of you are in your prime, don't waste your time. Who hasn't been young and arrogant? Sadly, I don't have the chance to redo things, or I would definitely be even crazier than I was back then. The human emperor laughed. Qin Wentian and the rest all had smiles on their faces. Foster father, you are still as glorious as ever. I'm sure everyone in the world has heard of that battle, executing the traitor's nobility and slaughtering the experts from the Violet Thunder sect. How glorious, you are even crazier compared to us. Qin Wentian laughed. I'm getting old. The human emperor smiled as he shook his head. Wentian, do you really not want to consider it? Those under Shi Xian's tutelage all have extraordinary strength. If you are willing, I can give you some loyal guards. Foster father, right now I'm roaming the outside world, why would I need guards? If in the future when I need manpower, I can always borrow some from foster father. Qin Wentian laughed. Maybe one day when he returns to Grand Xia, he would need the strength of the human emperor's subordinates to sweep through the various transcendent powers of Grand Xia. Naturally, he wasn't in a hurry now. If he didn't have enough strength, what did it matter if he borrowed the strength of the human emperor? He had to first step into the celestial phenomenon realm before overturning Grand Xia. Since you put it this way, in the future when you are roaming the outside world, bring Qingcheng and Lingshuang back to visit me when you are free. This Yi country is your home. The human emperor spoke again. He and Qin Wentian were kindred spirits and had accepted Qin Wentian as his foster son. Both of them had no greed in their hearts, and if Qin Wentian was willing, he wouldn't mind handing over the Yi country to Qin Wentian. But since Qin Wentian said that his ambitions weren't here, the human emperor wouldn't force him. Of course I won't be courteous with you, foster father, Qin Wentian said readily. Foster father, after we part ways today, let's have a drink and talk again another day. In the future when you marry Qingcheng, you have to send an invitation to Yi. If not, don't blame me for not recognizing you as my godson. How could that be? I still have to ask foster father to preside over my wedding. Upon seeing the human emperor pretending to be angry, Qin Wentian laughed. If he was going to marry Qingcheng, how could he not invite the human emperor? Ha, don't lie to me. The human emperor laughed uproariously. After which, he turned his head to Shi Xian and commanded, you guys protect Wentian, Lingshuang, and the others as they head to the immortal martial city. You guys have to protect them until they exit. Yes. Shi Xian bowed. Qin Wentian and the others didn't reject. This trip to the immortal martial realm would be like a raging storm. It was unknown how many people from the major powers would be there. Those princes and princesses of ancient countries, heaven chosen from the major clans, saint children and holy maidens from the ancient sects, all of them had extremely high statuses. They wouldn't care about the ordinary disciples of the battle sword sect. There was another very important point. When they entered the immortal martial realm and contended against the heaven chosen of the heavenly martial realm, their hands would definitely be stained with the blood of disciples from the major powers. Every time they exited the immortal martial realm, there would always be a huge battle. Okay, let's move out. The human emperor Yi Qingyun stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his black hair fluttering in the wind. The others bowed to the human emperor before their silhouettes flickered as they soared up into the air, riding on an ancient void sail. This was a type of divine weapon that allowed one to travel at an extremely fast speed. Everyone stood on the sail as they soared up into the clouds. Sunlight cascaded downwards. Qin Wentian turned his head back and glanced at the majestic ancient palace. The human emperor Yi Qingyun still had a smile on his face as he sent them off. Staring at the human emperor as well as the ancient palace, Qin Wentian's heart was filled with emotions. This trip to Yi had caused him to be moved, and it had also strengthened his conviction to pursue the path of cultivation. Even now, the scene of the battle with the human emperor was still vivid in his mind. This was a world of martial arts, a world of the strong. The victor was king and the loser was vilified. The human emperor had never offended anyone before, but as the human emperor of an ancient country, his authority towered up into the heavens, and he even had treasures in his possession. All of these became the reason why he was coveted by others. Even with the human emperor's overwhelming combat prowess, he was still forced to such a state. If it wasn't for the fact that the poison in his body had been cured, the fate of the human emperor's bloodline could very well be imagined. Shifting his gaze over, Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the blazing sun hanging high up in the sky. His eyes gleamed with an incomparably resolute conviction. The immortal martial realm was located in the northwest region of the royal sacred region. The immortal martial realm would only open once every 10 years, and it had already existed for tens of thousands of years. As time passed, outside of the once desolate immortal martial realm, a majestic city rose up from the ground. This was none other than the immortal martial city of today. Now, this immortal martial city had already become an ancient city, exuding an aura of vicissitudes, yet it didn't lose its majestic grandeur. It was said that this ancient immortal martial city had witnessed the rise and fall of the characters of the royal sacred region. Although this was an exaggeration, wasn't it the truth? For those heaven-shaking characters of the royal sacred sect, many of them had once left their footprints in this ancient immortal martial city, entering the immortal martial realm before. And now, the 10-year deadline had arrived. This ancient immortal martial city once again welcomed countless experts. The entire city was filled with people, completely different from the tranquility of normal days. In the airspace above the ancient city, demonic beasts roamed freely, and there were even several rarely seen greater demons that exuded a baleful aura that towered up into the sky. There were even some greater demons that were merely mounts. On the ancient pathway leading to the immortal martial city, in the air, there was an endless stream of people. And at this moment, in a certain location in the air, a thunderous rumbling sound echoed out as a terrifying aura permeated the air, shocking countless silhouettes. They inclined their heads and stared up in the air, only to see a group of experts riding on demonic beasts, exuding an unfathomable aura. In the center of these humans and demonic beasts, there was a terrifying greater demon that exuded a baleful aura. It had a pair of blood-colored eyes, and just a single glance at it would cause the hearts of people to tremble. This greater demon's body was gigantic, and its entire body was pitch black. However, a resplendent light could be seen reflecting off its body, causing people to feel a sense of danger. Its claws were so sharp that they could easily tear apart mountains. Blood-eyed demonic wolf. The hearts of the crowd trembled as they recalled a type of demonic beast. This demonic beast resembled a wolf, but its size was even more terrifying compared to a tiger or leopard. It was filled with power, and exuded the aura of a king. This blood-eyed demonic wolf was pulling a carriage in the air, and it was unknown what sort of character was seated within. That's someone from the Supreme Demon sect of the Western Domain. It's rumored that the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon sect has unparalleled talent, able to make all demonic beasts submit to him. His talent in beast taming is extraordinary, and he's one of the strongest contenders to become the next sect leader of the Supreme Demon sect. It's said that the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon sect is also about to enter the immortal martial realm. Seems like he has arrived. A voice drifted out, causing the hearts of the crowd to shiver. The Supreme Demon sect of the Western Domain was an extremely dangerous ancient sect. Their strength was extremely terrifying, and no one dared to antagonize them. 10 miles away, in the air, a group of terrifying silhouettes could be seen. They were all clad in golden armor and wielded golden long spears in their hands, exuding a resplendent light. Everywhere they passed by, people would have to stare up at them. These people were none other than experts from the radiant gold ancient country of the royal sacred region. They were proficient in combat and had terrifying combat prowess. And in another place, in the clouds, 9 flood dragons could be seen soaring through the skies, pulling a war chariot. Everywhere they passed by, there was no one who didn't retreat in fear. Wherever the gazes of the figures on the war chariot passed by, no one dared to match their gaze. These people were from one of the hegemonic powers of the royal sacred region, the Devil Dragon Island. Other than this, there were also many other terrifying powers that had already arrived or were currently on their way here. The 9 great sects that belonged to the royal sacred sect all sent people here, and they came in different batches. For example, Qin Wentian and those from the Battle Sword sect, as well as those from the other Battle Sword sects, would definitely be here as well. Any major power would have countless disciples, and the sect wouldn't force you to enter the immortal martial realm. Everyone had to go willingly. For example, those from the Supreme Demon Sect and Radiant Gold Ancient Country, it was only because of the appearance of important characters, such as the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon Sect and the Crown Prince of Radiant Gold Ancient Country. At this moment, in an elegant inn in the immortal martial city, Qin Wentian and his group were seated by the window. Qin Wentian, Yiling Shuang, Mo Qingcheng, Xiao Yu and a few other beauties from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were all seated together, while the others were seated at separate tables. His gaze would occasionally turn to the skies. Qin Wentian's eyes were filled with a faint smile. It had already been 3 days since they arrived in the immortal martial city. They stayed in an inn nearby and would occasionally stroll around the city. When they were tired, they would eat some snacks in the inn, living a carefree life. However, every time Qin Wentian saw the shocking scene in the air, great waves would appear in his heart. Not too long in the future, he would have to contend with these people for supremacy in the immortal martial realm. As the saying goes, beauties are a feast for the eyes. Junior brother Qin really knows how to enjoy life. At this moment, a voice drifted over from a table beside them. So it turned out that Lu Yun was filled with envy and jealousy when he saw Qin Wentian sitting at the same table with so many beauties. Sometimes, he also wanted to join in the fun, but Yiling Shuang's and Xiao Yu's gazes were sufficient to force him to retreat. Nowadays beauties are as common as the clouds in the immortal martial city. Even in an inn, beauties can be seen passing by at any time. How could senior brother Lu Yun be lonely? Qin Wentian laughed. Not long ago, there was a group of valiant beauties passing by the inn. That fellow Lu Yun whistled, attracting many murderous gazes. If it wasn't for the fact that the immortal martial city was filled with experts, making it so that no one dared to cause trouble, those beauties would have already acted against Lu Yun. Speaking of beauties, I have no choice but to mention the Celestial Maiden sect. I heard that the #1 beauty in the royal sacred region, the Celestial Maiden sect, has already arrived in the immortal martial city. Junior brother Qin, should we go and take a look? A bright light flashed in Lu Yun's eyes as he spoke of the Celestial Maiden sect. What Celestial Maiden sect? They are clearly a bunch of devilish girls. Also, who doesn't know that Lin Xianer has the ability to cause chaos and bewitch the hearts of men? Who knows how many people have fallen under her skirt? If you want to become the plaything of that demoness, just do it yourself. Why must you drag Wentian into this? Yiling Shuang furrowed her brows, as though she was extremely fearful of this Celestial Maiden sect. Don't I want to test junior brother Qin? Lin Xianer from the Celestial Maiden sect dares to claim that she's the #1 beauty in the world, but how could the beauty of the Holy Maiden lose out to her? Lu Yun laughed. Although Qingqing's beauty is definitely not inferior to that demoness, don't you know that demoness is most proficient in bewitching the hearts of men? How many geniuses in the royal sacred region have already fallen head over heels for her? Yet you still want to get close to her. Don't think I don't know that Lin Xianer spread the news that anyone with the immortal martial realm medallion would be able to become her guest. Are you trying to make use of junior brother Qin? Yiling Shuang glared at Lu Yun as she spoke. Qin Wentian couldn't help but feel curious when he saw the wariness in Yiling Shuang's eyes. This Lin Xianer from the Celestial Maiden sect actually had such charm that even a beauty like Yiling Shuang was so fearful of her. Chapter 552. Mo Qingqing sat beside Qin Wentian. When she saw Qin Wentian's flickering eyes, she couldn't help but have a smile on her face as she lightly nudged Qin Wentian's arm. Upon seeing Qin Wentian looking at her, Mo Qingqing's lips twitched. Do you want to see the #1 beauty under the heavens? Qin Wentian blinked when he saw the look in Mo Qingqing's eyes. He did indeed have such thoughts, but he didn't have any special intentions. He only wanted to see what sort of character this #1 beauty under the heavens was exactly. Seeing that Qin Wentian didn't reply, Mo Qingqing's dainty hand stealthily moved to Qin Wentian's thigh and pinched it harshly, causing Qin Wentian to have a bitter smile on his face. Women were truly born to be jealous, but one couldn't help but to say that when a beauty like Mo Qingqing was jealous, her expression was extremely beautiful. Even Yiling Shuang was stunned when she saw that. After which, she turned to Qin Wendian with a smile that was not a smile on her face. Since Wendian wants to go, just go with Lu Yun. I will accompany Qingqing here to wait for you guys. Yi Lingshuang's lips twitched, her words causing Qin Wendian to have a bitter smile on his face. Sister Lingshuang, don't hit me when I'm down. The beauties beside them all laughed. Lu Yun stared at the beautiful scenery in front of him as his eyes widened in envy and jealousy towards Qin Wendian. Right now, the female cultivators from the Medicine Sovereign Valley had a much better impression of Qin Wendian compared to before. In Yi, Qin Wendian's actions had caused the Qi King Manor to explode in anger for the sake of a beauty, and after that, he killed Yi Kongfan in a domineering manner. This matter had already shaken the entire royal capital of Yi, washing away the humiliation Mo Qingqing had suffered. Yi Kongfan's slander had long been discredited, and the things Qin Wendian had done for Mo Qingqing had become a topic of conversation, with many people talking about it. In addition to that shocking battle in the royal palace of the Yi country, the fame and prestige of the human emperor, Yi Qingyun, was like the sun in the sky. Not only that, Qin Wendian, the foster son of the human emperor, was also extremely famous in the Yi country. The people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were all aware of this, and gradually, they no longer had any thoughts of resisting Qin Wendian. In addition, the relationship between the two of them was already as inseparable as glue. Most probably, they were already husband and wife, and there was no way to change it. Sister Lingshuang, it's not like you don't know that he's used to being a playboy. There's never been a lack of beauties by his side. I know that there's a Qing. Isn't she also a peerless beauty? After Mo Qingqing and Qin Wendian met, her mood gradually became more cheerful, as though she had returned to the past. Naturally, this was only in front of those close to her. Qingqing, you know about it? Yi Lingshuang's beautiful eyes flickered. She had met Qing before. That aura of a snow lotus on an icy mountain was indeed breathtakingly beautiful. Cough cough. Qin Wendian felt extremely depressed in his heart. Wasn't this Yi Lingshuang too naive? And indeed, Mo Qingqing had a smile that was not a smile on her face as she stared at Qin Wendian, causing Qin Wendian to have a bitter smile on his face. Qingqing, I've already been honest with you. Several sharp gazes shot over. Qin Wendian inclined his head and saw that the countenances of the maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were all unkind. This bastard already had a woman like the Holy Maiden as his wife, yet he still had beauties accompanying him outside? Mo Qingqing snorted arrogantly. Qin Wendian felt that he couldn't sit here any longer. These maidens were too powerful, and not only that, he and Qing were both innocent and innocent. Sister Lingshuang, let's return to the inn and accompany them to see the number one beauty under the heavens. Mo Qingqing spoke to Yi Lingshuang. After which, the group of maidens actually stood up and departed. However, Mo Qingqing turned her head back and glanced at Qin Wendian as a soul-stirring smile appeared on her face. She reminded, be careful when you are outside, don't lose your soul to the seduction of beauties. After speaking, she left with Yi Lingshuang and the others. Staring at the back view of Mo Qingqing, Qin Wendian felt warmth in his heart. He knew that this lass wasn't angry and was only intentionally teasing him. Upon thinking of this, Qin Wendian ruthlessly spat in his heart, just wait and see how I'll deal with you when we return. Qin Wendian involuntarily had a complacent expression on his face. Junior brother Qin, why are you smiling so shamelessly? What are you thinking about? Lu Yun's voice drifted over, his words causing Qin Wendian to glare at him. The Holy Maiden is truly considerate, to actually allow you to see the number one beauty under the heavens. I wonder when would I have such a fated marriage with her? Lu Yun sighed. Alright, you guys stop arguing. Let's set off now. Duan Han interrupted the two of them, causing Qin Wendian and Lu Yun to turn their gazes onto him as they asked, where to? Naturally, to see the number one beauty under the heavens. This can also be considered a type of tempering. Duan Han started, before replying. Qin Wendian, Lu Yun and the rest all blinked their eyes. After which, They only saw Duan Han waving his hands as his silhouette flickered, revealing a faint smile on his face. Yes, tempering. The various fellow apprentices exchanged glances before they all laughed uproariously. So it turned out that senior brother Duan Han was the one who had concealed his strength. The Immortal Ripple Pavilion was surrounded by ancient buildings, and there were many young talents gathered here. The melody of a zither rang out in this space. It was truly incomparably beautiful. This zither melody could seep into one's heart, leaving behind a deep imprint in it. On top of the Immortal Ripple Pavilion, several masked maidens stood there, guarding it, not allowing anyone to get close. From afar, a group of silhouettes could be seen walking over. These people were none other than Qin Wendian and the others from the Battle Sword sect. Their footsteps were slow, as though they were all intoxicated by the zither melody. Lin Xian is proficient in music, and her zither melody is capable of seducing the souls of others. Initially, I thought it would be a song of seduction, but who would have thought that her zither melody was so elegant, without a hint of obscenity. It seems like I've underestimated the number one beauty under the heavens. Qin Wendian silently mused. On the way here, he had heard his fellow apprentices talking about the Celestial Maiden sect. The Celestial Maiden sect was a great sect of the eastern regions, and they only accepted female disciples. Not only that, they prioritized beauty before talent in martial arts. Hence, the members of the Celestial Maiden sect were all naturally born beauties. The current sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect had caused a huge commotion in the Royal Sacred Region 100 years ago. It was unknown how many heroes of the Royal Sacred Region had interacted with her before, leaving behind many rumors. For example, Nangong Zhu from the Nangong aristocrat clan of the eastern regions. His talent was outstanding and he was chosen to be the next clan leader of the Nangong aristocrat clan. He was adored by countless outstanding females, and there were many who were willing to marry him. However, back then, he actually forsook everything for the sake of the sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect. This matter caused a huge commotion in the eastern regions. The Nangong aristocrat clan didn't even hesitate to wage war against the Celestial Maiden sect, resulting in heavy casualties. However, Nangong Zhu was willing to stand on the side of the Celestial Maiden sect against the Nangong aristocrat clan. However, even until now, there was no news of the sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect marrying anyone. There were people who said that the fairies of the Celestial Maiden sect were all demonic women, using their beauty to seduce the souls of men. There were also people who said that although the reputation of the fairies of the Celestial Maiden sect wasn't bad, they all kept their chastity as pure as jade. Although there were many rumors of them having affairs with outstanding characters, no one had ever confirmed that they had actually obtained their virginity. The current Celestial Maiden Lin Xian of the Celestial Maiden sect didn't lose out in the slightest when compared to the sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect in the past. In fact, she even seemed to have the potential to surpass the sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect and was known as the number one beauty under the heavens. Now that she had started to roam the Royal Sacred Region, it was unknown how great of a commotion she would cause. Qin Wendian slowly walked forward. The sound of the zither permeated into the hearts of the spectators, containing a mysterious charm that could evoke the worries in their hearts, causing them to feel a faint sense of sorrow. It was so natural and silent. I've only heard the sound of the zither, and although I've never met her before, I feel as though I know her. Pulling the distance between us closer, as though we've known each other for a long time. Such a method is truly astonishing, Duan Han murmured, his words resonating with the hearts of the spectators. There's actually a faint fragrance permeating the air. Unknowingly, it's so natural and so refreshing, causing one's heart to itch uncontrollably, wanting to meet her once more. Lu Yun drew in a deep breath as an intoxicated expression appeared on his face. Qin Wendian also smelled this fragrance. It was simple and elegant, so natural that it blended into the air, causing one to feel intoxicated. What floral fragrance is this? Qin Wendian couldn't help but to ask. The fragrance of a woman. Lu Yun replied, Lin Xianer has an astral soul that's a plant type. This fragrance originated from her astral soul, and it has the ability to intoxicate and bewitch people. Junior brother Qin, you have to be careful. As he spoke, Qin Wentian and the others' silhouettes flickered, appearing in the airspace above an ancient building as they cast their gazes in the direction of the Immortal Ripple Pavilion. On the roofs of the ancient buildings around the Immortal Ripple Pavilion, the silhouettes of several youths could be seen. These people all had extraordinary demeanors, quietly standing there, yet none of them didn't give off an extraordinary feeling. Evidently, they were all outstanding characters, and without exception, their gazes were all fixed on the ancient pavilion in front of them. Above the Immortal Ripple Pavilion, there was a layer of curtains that obstructed the vision of the spectators. The sound of the zither originated from behind the curtains, and when one peered through the curtains, they could see a peerlessly beautiful silhouette sitting there, playing the zither. Her graceful fingers danced across the strings of the zither, and each of her movements seemed to be able to tug at the hearts of the spectators. Just by looking at that blurry silhouette, one could already feel how alluring this woman was. In this silent space, there were no sounds of chatter. When the song ended, the hearts of the spectators were filled with a sense of disappointment and frustration. Who? Someone let out a long sigh as he sighed. Fairy's music is exquisite, enough to cause the hearts of men to fall in love. The I King praises me too much. A voice drifted over, soft and silky, yet melodious and pleasing to the ears. It was as though even the voice of this woman was perfect and flawless, exuding a sense of allure. Since we're already here, why don't Fairy show herself? Don't disappoint us. Shang Tong spoke again. So it turned out that this person was none other than the Prince of Grand Shang Empire that Qin Wentian had met before in the Xian King City. Right now, he didn't exude any arrogance at all, and was amiable and approachable. His demeanor was completely different from the person he met before. Just because the person he was facing was different, his attitude and demeanor would naturally change. That's only natural. A melodious voice rang out. After which, the curtains of the curtains were lifted by the wind, flying to the two sides. After which, a silhouette appeared before the eyes of the spectators. That silhouette slowly inclined her head, and with just a single glance, it caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Qin Wentian's heart also trembled violently. After which, he bit his lips lightly as cold sweat appeared on his back. Lin Xian'er's beautiful eyes stared off into the distance. Her flawless countenance was flawless, yet such a woman actually gave off a feeling of fragility and softness. She was so pitiful that people couldn't help but feel a sense of tenderness towards her, wanting to protect her from any harm. However, Lin Xian'er was the future sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect. How could she possibly be weak? Such allure was actually so stealthy and silent, entering the hearts of the spectators. How could the spectators not be terrified? Femme fatale, able to bring calamity to empires and bring calamity to the people. Chapter 553. Within the Immortal Ripple Pavilion, a gentle breeze gusted by, fluttering the long hair of that delicate maiden. Lin Xian'er was different from what Qin Wentian had imagined. Before coming here, he had heard the evaluation of the Celestial Maiden sect. Qin Wentian had thought that this was a woman proficient in the arts of charm, possessing a pair of mesmerizing eyes that could mesmerize the hearts of men. But the truth was completely different from what Qin Wentian had imagined. Lin Xian'er's zither music was so elegant and clear, akin to a trickling stream, able to enter the hearts of men. She was extremely charming, without the slightest bit of seductiveness. Her eyes were so pure and clear, it was as though one could see the toughness and fragility in the depths of her heart. This was the first time Qin Wentian had seen such a woman. She was different from all the other women in the world. In her eyes, within her fragility, there was an unwavering determination. Not only Qin Wentian, the gazes of the others all trembled. Evidently, they too felt an intense contrast in their hearts. Among them, there were many geniuses with esteemed statuses. They came here with arrogance in their hearts, not because they wanted to subdue Lin Xian'er, but because they wanted to see what capabilities this maiden from the Celestial Maiden sect had to be able to mesmerize the geniuses. They all believed that their wills were extremely firm. How could they be seduced by the charm of a mere beauty? Hence, these geniuses all came here with a mocking attitude. They wanted to see how this maiden would mesmerize them. The ending was undoubtedly their loss. From the start till the end, Lin Xian'er had never revealed any intentions of bewitching them. Even in that fragility, there was still a hint of pride. Who? Drawing in a deep breath, these geniuses all felt ashamed in their hearts. Didn't Qin Wendian also have the same thoughts as the others? But the more he did so, the more shocked he was in his heart. Just a single glance from this maiden was enough to cause such emotions to appear in their hearts. Everyone has come from afar, Xian'er pays her respects. Lin Xian'er smiled. Her smile was as pure and peaceful as ever, causing people to feel a sense of loneliness. It was as though she was born this way. Fairy, you've really broadened my horizons. Just having a glance at you makes this trip worth it. Shang Tong sighed with emotion. Admiration came from the bottom of his heart, and his tone carried a trace of apology. Lin Xian'er, you are truly powerful. The moment you appeared, you caused all these geniuses to be speechless. A voice drifted over from afar. After which, a terrifying demonic qi permeated the air. In that direction, a terrifying blood-eyed demonic wolf could be seen pulling a carriage in the air, whistling through the air. An instant later, it appeared in this space. With a loud bang, the carriage was torn into pieces. An incomparably demonic and domineering young man walked out, walking on the back of the blood-eyed demonic wolf, looking extremely graceful. The Supreme Demon Realm Saint. Everyone glanced at the young man and their hearts trembled. The Saint of the Supreme Demon Realm was an extremely powerful figure. However, Lin Xian'er merely casually glanced at him as she slowly spoke. Since the geniuses gathered here today, I'm sure many of you are here to see Xian'er make a fool of herself. Since this is the case, I'll play a tune for you all, I hope you will kindly accept it. As the sound of her voice faded, Lin Xian'er's aura abruptly changed. Exuding a sense of arrogance, her 10 fingers lightly stroked the zither as she spoke again. For those who have no business here, please leave quickly, lest Xian'er accidentally injure you. Fairy, what an arrogant tone. Another figure spoke out. The gazes of the crowd turned to the top of a building in the north. Over there, a figure clad in green stood there, his long hair fluttering in the wind, exuding an incomparably carefree aura. Evidently, this was an extraordinary character, and was definitely a heaven chosen from one of the major sects in the royal sacred region. Today, Xian'er wants to see which of the geniuses here can rank higher in the immortal martial realm. Lin Xian'er faintly spoke. After which, the melody of her zither abruptly rang out. Streams of light flowed from Lin Xian'er's 10 fingers, extending outwards. At the instant the melody of her zither rang out, the entire space abruptly turned silent, as though they had fallen into a state of immersion. Silence, tranquility, bringing everyone into a state of emptiness. Qin Wendian quietly listened, and very swiftly, an illusion appeared in his mind. In this entire space, only he and Lin Xian'er remained. Lin Xian'er sat there, playing her zither, while he sat opposite her, listening to the melody. In this entire space, there were only the two of them. Illusionary realm. Qin Wendian's heart was as clear as a mirror. The melody of the zither had actually brought him into an illusionary realm, yet he didn't intentionally try to break free from it. From Lin Xian'er's words, it seemed that she wanted to contend against the others. Since that was the case, he wanted to see what methods Lin Xian'er had. The melody of the zither was so graceful and moving. Qin Wendian accompanied her just like that, listening to her melody as he sunk deep into it. After a long time, they helped each other in times of hardship, sharing each other's hearts. Such feelings were pure and simple, without any impurities at all. The melody of the zither had completely brought him into a world of tranquility, abandoning all the worries and conflicts in the world. With only a beautiful woman playing the zither, this kind of spiritual liberation was so relaxing and wondrous. Qin Wendian felt as though he had accompanied Lin Xian'er for a very long time. The two of them didn't speak, yet it was as though they already knew each other. Just a single melody of the zither was able to bring him into such a state. Sir, you can speak to me, I can hear your inner thoughts. Lin Xian'er inclined her head and stared at Qin Wentian as she smiled. Her words caused Qin Wentian's heart to violently tremble as he stared at her face. Fairy, what a powerful illusionary realm. It was as though Qin Wentian had really spoken in the illusionary realm. His heart trembled even more. Back then when he was in the royal tomb of Grand Xia, he couldn't differentiate between reality and illusion. But now, this illusionary realm actually had the same feeling as he did back then. From this, one could see how powerful this illusionary realm was. However, it's not difficult for Sir to break free. Lin Xian'er smiled. I've yet to ask for Sir's name. Qin Wentian. So it's Sir Qin who broke the record of the battle sword sect. Sir Qin has a holy maiden as your wife, no wonder you don't have the slightest bit of affection for Xian'er. Also, your will is so resolute, you must have experienced similar illusionary realms before, right? Lin Xian'er continued, it was as though she could see through Qin Wentian. I've experienced a dream before, and it can only be stronger and not weaker compared to Fairy's illusionary realm. Qin Wentian didn't hide anything. So this is the case. Sir Qin has never been famous in the royal sacred region before, yet you suddenly rose up and even obtained the heart of the holy maiden. You must have come from a faraway land, and to be able to reach this step, you must have experienced countless hardships. No wonder your will is so resolute. How can you be compared to those geniuses from the major powers? Lin Xian'er's voice was sincere, as though she regretted not meeting him earlier. Fairy praises me too much. There are countless geniuses from the major powers in the royal sacred region. Although I, Qin Wentian, wouldn't look down on the heroes of the world. For example, Fairy has truly broadened my horizons, Qin Wentian sincerely replied. Among these geniuses, Xian'er and Sir Qin hit it off quite well. It's just that if there's a day when we have no choice but to face each other, how can I bear to do so? As the sound of Lin Xian'er's voice faded, the melody suddenly changed. The tranquil melody vanished completely, replaced by a faint killing intent. It was as though a close friend had turned into an enemy, and had no choice but to face each other with weapons, filled with helplessness. Fairy's words are actually so confident. Are you certain that you can defeat me? Qin Wentian spoke. Lin Xian'er actually said that she couldn't bear to act against him. Such arrogance didn't seem to be something that would come out from the mouth of that weak and delicate maiden. Lin Xian'er didn't reply. The melody of the zither grew more and more urgent, akin to a raging tempest. The armored horses galloped forward, and the entire space was suddenly enveloped by a desolate killing intent. Qin Wentian only felt that the entire space was filled with killing intent. That weak and delicate maiden was still lowering her head and playing a melody of desolation. Sir, be careful. Lin Xian'er faintly spoke. Instantly, within the melody of her zither, numerous terrifying blades of killing intent erupted forth, soundless and as fast as lightning, stabbing towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's aura erupted forth as his demeanor changed. Lifting his palms, he blasted out a draconic imprint. Instantly, the draconic roars echoed out, blasting away the sharp blades. At the same time, Qin Wentian stepped out as sword chi gushed forth. A terrifying sword might permeated the entire space as he stepped towards Lin Xian'er. He was also an extremely decisive person. Since Lin Xian'er wanted to probe him, he would directly act. Every step he took caused sword chi to surge up the skies. However, Lin Xian'er's zither melody grew more and more urgent, blotting out the skies and covering the earth. Qin Wentian felt as though he was being enveloped by a mysterious energy, as a feeling of extreme agony flooded his entire body. However, his gaze was incomparably resolute, and every step he took brought forth a towering sword might. Lin Xian'er stood up. Her silhouette flickered as her opponent's body actually split into two. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were filled with Lin Xian'er's silhouettes. Each and every one of them was playing the zither, causing Qin Wentian to feel his will becoming chaotic, as though he was about to fall into a trap. How powerful! The blood in Qin Wentian's body seethed as a vertical pupil appeared in the center of his brows. Stretching out his palms, a blood-colored ancient halberd materialized, exuding a towering blood might. Bang! Sword chi gushed forth, transforming into raging waves. Boundless sword might descended from the heavens, slashing towards Lin Xian'er's silhouettes. Bzzz. Lin Xian'er's silhouettes waved their palms at the same time. On the surface of the zither, numerous needle-like beams of killing light shot towards Qin Wentian, as though he had nowhere to hide. Die! Qin Wentian unleashed the 7 Annihilations swordplay to the extreme. As he stomped down, sword melody ravaged the air. Lin Xian'er's body felt as though it was about to be torn apart. But at this moment, a silhouette appeared in the air. Qin Wentian seemed to have grown eyes on the top of his head. Stepping out, the blood-colored ancient halberd slashed out in rage. In that instant, the ancient halberd moved soundlessly, as fast as lightning. Chi! Lin Xian'er's body was directly penetrated by the halberd. But at the same instant, a terrifying sense of danger bore down on her. Behind Qin Wentian, a palm directly slammed down. Astral light erupted, stellar transposition. Qin Wentian's silhouette directly vanished, transforming into a series of afterimages as he sped forward. The ancient halberd in his hands stabbed out with an indomitable will. The location he was attacking was none other than the location where Lin Xian'er was playing her zither. However, at this moment, there was no one there. Behind Qin Wentian, Lin Xian'er's silhouette stood there. An expression of astonishment appeared on her face as her beautiful eyes gleamed with sharpness. Bzzz. Abruptly, a fluctuation of energy appeared in that empty location. After which, Lin Xian'er's silhouette appeared once more, rapidly retreating. She appeared, but the ancient halberd seemed to have vanished. A light sound rang out, and Lin Xian'er, who was behind her, had an expression of shock on her face. After which, she directly transformed into thin air. And in front of him, where Lin Xian'er's heart was, a blood-colored ancient halberd could be seen. Lin Xian'er, who was pierced by the halberd, inclined her head and stared at Qin Wentian. After which, she smiled, "Sir Qin, how did you discover it? Fairies' illusions are too shocking." Qin Wentian sighed, but he didn't reply. How powerful was his perception? Back then when he was at Yuanfu, he could already see through the Luo River. But today, he was almost fooled by Lin Xian'er. At the instant Lin Xian'er stood up, she was already using his eyes to deceive his perception. But I still lost. Lin Xian'er laughed. Abruptly, everything vanished. Qin Wentian discovered that he was still standing at his original location, while Lin Xian'er was still sitting on the immortal Ripple Pavilion. It was as though everything that happened earlier was nothing but a dream. Not only Qin Wentian, everyone else also awoke from their illusions. Their hearts were incomparably shaken, and some of the heavens chosen even had blood seeping out of their mouths, their countenances pale. The disciples of the battle sword sect beside Qin Wentian all had pale countenances, as expressions of shame could be seen in their eyes. This made Qin Wentian understand that earlier, Lin Xian'er had actually fought against all the heavens chosen. Victory and defeat have yet to be determined. Why did Fairy withdraw? The saint child of the supreme demon sect's aura gushed forth, as though he hadn't had his fill of battles. Xian'er has already been defeated once. Lin Xian'er slowly spoke. After which, her gaze landed on Qin Wentian. The judgment of the envoys from the immortal martial realm is truly sharp. Among all the heavens chosen here, Sir Qin is the number one. Chapter 554. As the sound of Lin Xian'er's voice faded, numerous incomparably sharp gazes instantly turned towards Qin Wentian as a terrifying pressure bore down on him. In the surroundings, there were over 10 geniuses gathered here. All of their hearts were higher than the heavens, and when they heard that the number one beauty under the heavens, Lin Xian'er, was in the immortal Ripple Pavilion, they naturally wanted to see for themselves what sort of woman she was, daring to cause so much trouble for the geniuses here. Lin Xian'er left a deep impression in their hearts. Earlier in the Illusionscape battle, it was as though their cultivation bases were the same. quite a few geniuses were defeated by Lin Xian'er, causing their hearts to be filled with shock. Initially, they thought that Lin Xian'er would be a weak and frail woman who only relied on her charm to seduce men. Who would have thought that she was actually so outstanding, swiftly leaving behind an indelible impression in their hearts. But right now, Lin Xian'er's words undoubtedly caused everyone to lose all face. Out of all the geniuses here, Sir Qin was undoubtedly the number one. Who was this Sir Qin? He actually dared to proclaim himself to be number one among them. I've never heard of any heavenly dipper sovereign surnamed Qin before. Who is this Sir Qin that Fairy Lin is talking about? The saint child of the supreme demon sect swept his gaze over to Qin Wentian, his demonic chi cold and filled with a biting cold battle intent. After which, he turned his gaze back to Lin Xian'er, wanting to see if her words were true or false. Earlier in the Illusionscape battle, he didn't manage to obtain victory. His opponent's illusionary arts were extremely terrifying, and it was as though there was no end to the number of clones he could kill. Within the battle sword sect, comprehending the 14 sword strikes. In the royal palace of Yi, enraged because of a beauty. Other than Sir Qin who jumped levels to kill Yi Kongfan, who else could it be? Lin Xian'er smiled as she turned her gaze over to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian was initially somewhat unhappy. After all, a single sentence from Lin Xian'er had pushed him to the heart of the storm. However, Lin Xian'er's eyes were filled with sincerity, without the slightest bit of hypocrisy. It was as though her words were spoken from the depths of her heart. In addition to that beautiful countenance of hers that could bring calamity to the masses, it was truly impossible for anyone to feel hatred towards her. What kind of genius is Yi Kongfan from Yi? Killing him can actually be considered a battle achievement. The saint child of the supreme demon sect spoke in arrogance. He didn't even glance at Qin Wentian as he coldly stated, the number one ranker fairy spoke of, killing him is as easy as flipping my palms. Saint child, your cultivation base is the same as Yi Kongfan, both at the peak of the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. If you are 2 levels lower, I wonder if you would still dare to boast so shamelessly. An expression of disappointment appeared on Lin Xian'er's face when she heard the arrogant words of the saint child of the supreme demon sect. She faintly replied, my so-called number one ranking is only based on my talent, not combat prowess. Of Lin Xian'er's words, Lin Xian'er of anger of disappointment, of Qin of. Saint child, if you want to twist words and force logic, Xian'er has nothing to say. Among the geniuses who entered the immortal martial realm this time around, I'm afraid the saint child can't even be considered a heaven's chosen. What use is the ranking monument? Lin Xian'er didn't mince her words, actually starting a dispute with the saint child of the supreme demon sect. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the saint child of the supreme demon sect as he faintly spoke, fairy's words are truly looking down on me. As the saying goes, those who walk different paths cannot make plans together. The people Xian'er befriended are all people who understand me. Lin Xian'er coldly spoke, her meaning was clear without words. Although Qin Wentian was the saint child of the supreme demon sect, he wasn't someone she wanted to befriend. Ha ha ha. The saint child of the supreme demon sect started laughing maniacally. His laughter was like a howl, causing the heavens and earth to tremble unceasingly. His gaze abruptly turned over, staring in the direction of Qin Wentian. Abruptly, his eyes widened in anger as he howled in madness. Instantly, the heavens and earth trembled unceasingly as a gigantic maw of blood appeared in the air, descending from the heavens, directly pressing down on Qin Wentian, wanting to swallow him whole. What a powerful bestial roar! Duan Han's eyes flickered with a cold light as he slashed out with his palms. The black-colored sword slashed out, directly cleaving the gigantic mouth into 2. The aftershocks from the aftershocks blasted onto the bodies of the disciples of the battle sword sect, causing their robes to flutter in the wind as their clothes were torn into shreds. What's more, the battle sword sect? Duan Han asked. The blood-eyed demonic wolf mount of the saint child of the supreme demon sect coldly glanced over, its eyes gleaming with a blood-red light, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Number one among all the geniuses here. The saint child of the supreme demon sect stopped howling. He turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian, his eyes like a demon, tyrannical and sharp. Lin Xian, after we enter the immortal martial realm, I want you, the number one beauty under the heavens, to become my slave. As for the number one you speak of, he shall become my mount. As the sound of his voice faded, the blood-eyed demonic wolf mount let out a low growl before vanishing from sight, leaving behind an incomparably arrogant voice. Shameless boasting. Lin Xian's clear eyes gleamed with coldness. Her fingers plucked the strings of her zither as an intense killing intent gushed forth. Today, I've witnessed Fairy Lin's glory. If there's a chance in the future, let us meet again in the immortal martial realm. A voice rang out, only to see the silhouette of a young man drifting away. Other than this, the other geniuses on the other buildings also departed. Lin Xian said that Qin Wentian was the number one among all the geniuses here. There was naturally no meaning for them to remain here. Although they were competitive in their hearts, it was impossible for them to directly act against Qin Wentian. If they did so, wouldn't their hearts be a little too weak? They would remember Lin Xian's words. In the immortal martial realm, the ranking monument would naturally bear witness to everything. From afar, Shang Tong coldly glanced at Qin Wentian as killing intent flickered in his eyes. After which, his silhouette flickered as well, temporarily departing. Qin Wentian was initially preparing to bid his farewell, yet Lin Xian turned her gaze over as she smiled. Sir Qin, do you mind coming to the immortal Ripple Pavilion for a chat? Qin Wentian's gaze stiffened as he stared at the smile on Lin Xian's face. After which, he nodded his head lightly as his silhouette flickered, flying towards the immortal Ripple Pavilion. Why is it that all the good things under the heavens are monopolized by him alone? Lu Yun gloomily commented. Duan Han's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he spoke in a low voice. This woman is indeed worthy of being a fairy from the Celestial Maiden sect. In that battle earlier, even if I were to continue, I wouldn't be able to defeat her. Such a woman isn't someone ordinary people can control. After speaking, Duan Han directly turned and departed. Although Lin Xian was polite from the start, with a smile on her face, from her conversation with the saint child of the Supreme Demon sect, one could tell that the saint child of the Supreme Demon sect couldn't even enter her eyes. Only characters like Qin Wentian, who could defeat her in the illusory realm, would have the qualifications to get close to her. Lu Yun and the others also had a look of disappointment on their faces. Earlier, they were all defeated by Lin Xian in the illusory realm and naturally knew their own limits. They all turned and departed, leaving behind only a shadow-like figure standing at the side. Those from the Battle Sword sect didn't bother with him. They knew that this Mu Feng was like a shadow of Qin Wentian, as though he didn't exist at all. In the immortal Ripple Pavilion, the curtains were pulled apart. Momentarily, countless people felt a sense of loss, as though they had lost something. Lin Xian was known as the number one beauty under the heavens. Just a single glance at her would cause people to be unable to forget her beauty. Even those geniuses would feel a strong desire to protect her, let alone ordinary people. At this moment, countless figures stood there, staring at the silhouette behind the curtains. It was as though watching her quietly was a wonderful thing. Lin Xian changed her position, her back facing the curtains. In front of her, there was a lake with many small boats floating on it. These were all people from the Celestial Maiden sect. Fairy, do you have any instructions for me? Qin Wentian stood beside Lin Xian. Staring at her from such a close distance, Qin Wentian could clearly sense the charm of this maiden. That soft and supple skin, those soul-stirring eyes, caused people to have an urge to rush up and pull her into their embrace. A faint fragrance permeated the air, exuding a sense of elegance and nobility. Puchi. Lin Xian smiled, akin to 100 flowers blooming, incomparably beautiful. Sir Qin, why must you be so restrained? I've always treated Sir Qin as my bosom friend. Sir Qin, please don't be so distant. Wouldn't Xian be embarrassed? Lin Xian's every frown and every smile was extremely soul-stirring. There wasn't the slightest hint of seduction within. However, this kind of natural beauty was even more attractive. That was an unfathomable natural charm. Her words and smile caused Qin Wentian to feel as though the distance between the two of them had shortened greatly. He was a little dazed as he stared at her. Shaking his head, he smiled, "Fairy, you should know how great your charm is. It's hard not to be restrained." "Oh." A shy expression appeared on Lin Xian'er's face. After which, she smiled, "Sir Qin, you can just call me Xian'er. As for charm, how does Xian'er compare to the Holy Maiden? In my heart, Qingcheng is naturally the most beautiful. But in terms of charm, I'm afraid Fairy Qin is a notch higher, making it hard for people to restrain themselves." Qin Wentian bluntly stated. Mo Qingcheng was a beauty that could topple empires. Her beauty was flawless and perfect, pure and holy. Cold in front of others, causing people to not dare to look at her directly. But Lin Xian'er was different. She caused people to feel an intense desire to protect her, wanting to get close to her. Sir Qin is also someone infatuated with love. It's just that if the Holy Maiden knew that Sir Qin is here, she would definitely scold me for being a demoness. Lin Xian'er laughed. After which, her fingers strummed the zither as the melodious melody rang out once more. The melody was light and beautiful, and unknowingly, Qin Wentian was intoxicated by it. Listening to the melody, it was as though he had forgotten the passage of time. The shadow of the sun slanted to the west as night descended. A full moon hung in the sky, cascading its moonlight onto the tranquil surface of the lake. In addition to the melody, it was indescribably beautiful. As Qin Wentian listened to the melody, he actually recalled all the bits and pieces of his life with Mo Qingcheng. Occasionally, he would think of that silly last Qing-er. A light smile appeared on his face. This joyous melody seemed to be the sound of nature bestowed to lovers. Turning his head, Qin Wentian glanced at Lin Xian'er who was playing the zither beside him. Under the illumination of the moonlight, her beauty was so breathtaking that it caused people to be breathless. Lin Xian'er seemed to have sensed his gaze. She also turned her gaze onto Qin Wentian as she smiled. "From the peaceful smile on Sir Qin's face, I can tell that you love your wife very much. If the Holy Maiden misunderstands Sir Qin, please tell her that there are many misunderstandings regarding the Celestial Maiden sect. Xian'er isn't someone who would fall in love with romance. In the future, if I can't find a suitable man who will treat me wholeheartedly, I will follow the example of my master and remain unmarried for the rest of my life." Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Could it be that the sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect didn't marry because she hadn't found a suitable man? Even a character like Nangong Zhu couldn't move her heart. Indeed, her heart was higher than the heavens. What kind of man does Fairy Qin want to find? Qin Wentian curiously asked. There are 8 error-suppressing geniuses at the Heavenly Dipper realm in our royal sacred region. I'm sure they would only be stronger and not weaker compared to Sir Qin. Xian'er's words don't have any intentions of belittling Sir Qin. It's just that since these 8 people are said to be able to suppress an entire era, I'm sure they all have heaven-shaking talents and aren't something the saint child of the Supreme Demon sect can contend against. I wonder what kind of demeanor these 8 people have. Lin Xian'er smiled. Qin Wentian didn't mind as he smiled. For a character like Xian'er, I'm sure she would be able to find the man she loves. It's already late. Xian'er, I have to return. Qin Wentian stood up. Lin Xian'er smiled and nodded. Sir, take care. Remember to send Xian'er my regards to the Holy Maiden. As she spoke, she even winked at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to perspire. He didn't know if Mo Qingcheng would be jealous or not. We'll meet again in the future. With a flicker of his silhouette, Qin Wentian soared through the air and departed. Lin Xian'er stared at the departing back of Qin Wentian as a smile appeared on her face. She took out an ancient scroll with a few names written on it. After which, she lifted her brush and inscribed the words Qin Wentian on it. Chapter 555. Qin Wentian returned to the inn, only to see Mo Qingcheng standing in front of the window, gazing at the scenery outside. The moonlight illuminated her flawless countenance, making her seem like a celestial maiden under the moon. Qingcheng, were you waiting for me? Qin Wentian walked behind Emo Qingcheng, stretching out his hands to embrace her slender waist. A gentle smile flashed past Emo Qingcheng's face as she leaned back, leaning against Qin Wentian. After which, she seemed to have thought of something, as a coquettish expression appeared on her face. To think that you would still be willing to come back after having a long chat with the #1 beauty under the heavens. Emo Qingcheng softly spoke, as though she was jealous. Which girl in the world wouldn't be jealous? Although Emo Qingcheng was a holy maiden, she was no exception. Who asked this young man to be the man she deeply loved? However, she still wouldn't interfere in Qin Wentian's matters. It was fine as long as he was happy. If not, she wouldn't have intentionally allowed him to leave during the day. No matter how beautiful you are, how can you be more beautiful than Qingcheng? Qin Wentian hugged her tightly, his face pressed against Emo Qingcheng's. Emo Qingcheng's lips curled up in a smile, feeling joy in her heart when she heard Qin Wentian's sweet words. Humph, Emo Qingcheng snorted as she turned her head slightly, leaning against Qin Wentian's face. Their gazes locked, and a hint of shyness flashed past Emo Qingcheng's face. She hurriedly shifted her head away, as a soul-stirring shyness could still be seen on her countenance. How is the celestial maiden from the celestial maiden sect? Emo Qingcheng asked in a light voice. A rare beauty. Although she appears weak, her heart is as lofty as the heavens. Qin Wentian replied in a low voice. Emo Qingcheng's beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light when she heard this. Today, only you are able to enter the heavenly chamber. You, the Dumbo, is the one Lin Xian'er values the most. Doesn't that mean that in Lin Xian'er's eyes, you will become a character equal to the heavens? Why? Can't a Dumbo like me do? Qin Wentian joked. Fine, at least this Lin Xian'er has some foresight. Emo Qingcheng winked at Qin Wentian as a mischievous expression appeared on her face. Of course. Don't you know who my wife is? Qin Wentian teased. Right now in front of Emo Qingcheng, he didn't feel the slightest bit of restraint. This empire-toppling maiden was the resting place of his soul. Emo Qingcheng couldn't endure Qin Wentian's teasing. She nudged Qin Wentian's body with her arms, her face was incomparably beautiful, causing Qin Wentian's heartbeat to quicken. Lin Xian'er's aspirations are extremely lofty. She told me that if she didn't meet a husband who was loyal to her in this lifetime, she would never marry. She also revealed that the people she paid attention to should be those 8 era-suppressing heavenly dipper sovereigns. Even I'm not worthy enough to enter her eyes. Qin Wentian laughed. Emo Qingcheng's lips twitched as she lowered her head, staring at Qin Wentian. She gently laughed, how can there be so many era-suppressing characters? In the future, when these characters contend against each other, only 1 or 2 of them would be able to suppress the era-suppressing era. Yet, she doesn't even know that one of them is right in front of her. She truly has no foresight. Qin Wentian stared at the beautiful maiden who had her head tilted upwards with a smile on her face. Boundless tenderness appeared in his heart as he pressed his lips forward, causing Emo Qingcheng's beautiful eyes to blink. She had actually delivered herself into a demonic palm. After that, she felt her body becoming light as someone hugged her by the waist. This night was naturally incomparably wondrous. Early in the morning, the warm rays of the sun cascaded in through the windows. Qin Wentian walked out of his room, and when he saw the beautiful maiden who was dressing up in front of the window, a hint of warmth appeared in his heart. This empire-toppling maiden had been acquainted with him ever since they were young, and after experiencing so many trials and tribulations, they were finally able to walk together. He silently vowed in his heart that he would never let Qingcheng suffer again in this lifetime. Emo Qingcheng's long hair was akin to a waterfall, cascading down her back. She turned her head and glanced at Qin Wentian as she gently laughed, you still know to wake up. Yesterday was too blissful, so I naturally woke up a little later. Qin Wentian laughed, causing Emo Qingcheng's face to instantly turn red. She glared fiercely at Qin Wentian. How did this Dumbo become so naughty? Where did he still look like he was when he was young? Although he was glib-tongued, he wasn't dumb at all. Right now, the atmosphere in the immortal martial city is extremely lively. Qingcheng, let's go out for a walk later. Qin Wentian laughed. Mo Qingcheng's face was still red. If others knew that this pure and holy maiden was teased by Qin Wentian in such a manner, it was unknown what expression they would have. Most probably, they would even have thoughts of killing Qin Wentian. Lightly nodding her head, Mo Qingcheng was naturally willing to spend more time with Qin Wentian. After the two of them finished washing up, they slipped out of the inn. Right now, the atmosphere in the immortal martial city was extremely lively. Experts were as common as the clouds, and the geniuses who usually had their heads held high in the air were all extremely low profile now. This was because these heavens chosen could be found anywhere. After all, the expedition to the immortal martial realm this time around had shaken the entire royal sacred region. There were countless ancient clans and sects in the royal sacred region, and how many heavens chosen would be gathered here today? This could be said to be a gathering of wind and clouds. For a beauty like Mo Qingcheng, no matter where she went, she would always be the center of attention. However, just from her demeanor, one could tell that she was from a major power. Hence, nobody dared to disturb her. Walking beside Mo Qingcheng, Qin Wentian was extraordinarily handsome. Although he didn't exude any aura, his countenance was as bright as the sun, and his eyes were as deep as the abyss, giving off an unfathomable feeling. The two of them walking together caused many to cast envious gazes at them. At this moment, Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared ahead. An intense fluctuation could be felt in the air as a golden light illuminated the skies. Faintly, a thunderous roar could be heard. It's the people from Radiant Gold, they are actually ganging up on a single person. That person is so powerful. From afar, voices rang out as more and more silhouettes appeared, rushing forward. Let's go take a look. Qin Wentian held on to Mo Qingcheng's hand. Their silhouettes flashed as they soared through the air. An instant later, they arrived at the outskirts of the battlefield, standing at the top of an ancient building. In the air in front of them, a resplendent golden light could be seen. Numerous experts from Radiant Gold were clad in golden armor, radiating boundless radiance. They wielded golden spears in their hands, and their attacks were extremely terrifying. The cultivation bases of these people were all at the Heavenly Dipper realm. The weakest was at the 5th level, while the strongest was at the 8th level. However, the person they were ganging up on was only at the 7th level. It was unknown what kind of innate technique this person used. His body was actually 10 meters long, resembling an ancient god that could reach the heavens. His eyes shone with a golden light, and his entire body exuded an incomparably terrifying sharpness, as though they were forged from pure gold. Just an ant like you actually dares to proclaim yourself as a heaven chosen? Cultivating the law of metal, claiming to be from Radiant Gold? The gigantic silhouette roared in rage, causing the void to tremble and shatter. An ancient golden spear pierced through the air, directly piercing into his body. The terrifying force caused the ancient spear to pierce into his body, only to discover that the spear was blocked by the golden bones and blood, unable to penetrate any further. What a terrifying defense. Both of them are at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet this person can't even break through the defense of that giant. Qin Wentian's countenance trembled violently. There's always a sky beyond a sky, this person was truly terrifying. That gigantic figure waved his palms as a golden palm imprint the size of a millstone smashed downwards. With a thunderous boom, the body of the person who attacked him was directly crushed into smithereens, not even dregs remained. The rage of the other experts from Radiant Gold towered up into the sky. They surrounded the gigantic figure, not daring to act recklessly. Their countenances were all ashen, incomparably unsightly to behold. Li Tian, you are too much. An expert from Radiant Gold roared in rage. Upon hearing his words, the countenances of many in the crowd brightened. There were also some who had already guessed the identity of this person, but their countenances didn't change. He's Li Tian from the Heaven Punisher clan. No wonder he's so powerful. Qin Wentian mumbled. Li Tian, a supreme genius from the Heaven Punisher clan of the Desolate Mountain Range, one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses at the Heavenly Dipper realm. He was unrivaled on the sacred battle platform within the same cultivation level. There was no one who could match up to him. Jumping levels to kill was as easy as taking something out of his pocket. What was an era-suppressing genius? It meant that other than these 8, there was no one else who could match up to their radiance. After they matured, they would be the true era-suppressing geniuses. Naturally, who among these 8 would be eliminated and who would remain would have to depend on their own luck and fate. But there was no need to doubt their strength. Li Tian from the Heaven Punisher clan, it's rumored that he only cultivates a single type of energy, the mandate of metal. Right now, his body is akin to an indestructible golden body, his bones, flesh, and blood are all forged from pure gold. He pursues the pinnacle of the mandate of metal, and when the mandate of metal reaches a certain level, both his offense and defense would be extremely terrifying. Just like this Li Tian, his pursuit of the mandate of metal is his conviction. Mo Qingcheng had naturally heard of Li Tian before. At this moment, Li Tian stepped out as his blood surged. Even the blood in his body was golden in color, transforming into a golden long spear that frenziedly extended outwards. With a howl of rage, the golden spear pierced through the air, causing an expert from radiant gold to explosively retreat. However, Li Tian's golden spear flew out of his hand, and with a piercing sound, it pierced through the body of his opponent, causing him to rapidly descend from the air. With a deafening boom, a building collapsed. The golden long spear pierced through the ground, nailing the body of that expert to the ground. Such might was simply terrifying. Wentian, if you suppress your cultivation base to the same level, do you have the confidence to fight against him? Mo Qingqing stared at Qin Wentian as she asked. She had absolute trust in Qin Wentian. She had always believed that Qin Wentian would definitely be able to become an era-suppressing existence. I have no idea. Li Tian didn't use his full strength when fighting against these people. I have no idea how strong his limits are, and I've never tested the strength of his defense before. Qin Wentian shook his head. It was very hard to judge who was stronger just by looking at his opponent's attacks. But this was also the first time Qin Wentian met someone he didn't have the confidence to fight against at the same level. If they fought against each other at the same level, the victor would be unknown. Ants from Radiant Gold, you better take a detour when you see me in the future. Today, I shall spare your dog lives. Li Tian coldly spoke. After which, he soared into the air and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yet, he left behind a deep impression in the hearts of the spectators. Given Li Tian's demeanor, the other 7 shouldn't be inferior to him. This trip to the immortal martial realm was truly filled with anticipation. On the ranking monument of the immortal martial realm, would those 8 era-suppressing geniuses be able to occupy the top 8 positions? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.